Chapter 376. The death of Yao Jun caused countless people to be in shock. A terrifying existence ranked number 13 in the previous Heavenly Fate rankings had actually died in the hands of a mysterious black-robed figure. At this moment, no one knew who the black-robed person was. They didn't even know if he was a man or a woman. However, since this person cultivated such a powerful demonic art, he was most likely a man. Now that one of the Heavenly Fate rankings had fallen, the next person to replace him would be Ouyang Guangxing. Currently, there were only 17 names remaining, with Ouyang Guangxing ranked last. Ouyang Zheng, who was originally ranked in the top 10, was stuck at number 20 on the Heavenly Fate rankings due to his slow improvement in strength. But now, Ouyang Guangxing is actually ranked in the top 17th. The changes are truly too great. If you don't improve, you are destined to be surpassed by others. Now, Ouyang Guangxing has become the true leader of this generation of the Ouyang aristocrat clan, officially surpassing Ouyang Zheng. After which, Ouyang Guangxing challenged the dark horse Leng Hong. The two of them battled against each other and Ouyang Guangxing defeated Leng Hong. After which, he challenged Li Yu of the Thousand Zhu Alliance, who was originally ranked number 9 on the Heavenly Fate rankings. In the end, he was defeated and Ouyang Guangxing's ranking was fixed at number 16. Because his ranking didn't advance any further, Leng Hong, who was defeated by him, was in an extremely miserable state. He didn't even have the chance to challenge Qin Wendian, and his ranking was fixed at number 17. Both dark horses had reached the end of their paths. After that, it was the black-robed man's turn. Instantly, many gazes landed on him. Could the black-robed man still advance? The black-robed man stepped onto the vermilion bird stage. His gaze slowly turned around and finally landed on one person, causing everyone's eyes to freeze. You. The voice of the black-robed figure was somewhat hoarse. His finger was actually pointing at Mo Qingqing. The black-robed figure challenged the number 1 beauty of the Heavenly Fate rankings, Mo Qingqing. When others faced Mo Qingqing, they would all show some respect. Because she was too beautiful, no one could bear to trample a flower. This was the first time someone directly challenged Mo Qingqing. Not only that, it was a black-robed expert who cultivated devil arts. Qin Wendian's countenance stiffened as a look of bewilderment appeared on his face. He had never expected that the black-robed figure would challenge Mo Qingqing. He still had a good impression of the black-robed expert. The black-robed expert had helped him before, but he didn't understand. Why would he choose Mo Qingqing? Mo Qingqing's silhouette flickered as she landed on the arena platform. She was like a celestial maiden descending from the heavens, captivating the hearts of the spectators. Just looking at her was a form of enjoyment. Her body glowed with a mystical light, causing her to be exceptionally dazzling. The black-robed figure didn't say anything more. Devil might gushed forth from her, incomparably terrifying. In the air, the devil might churned unceasingly, causing Qin Wendian to frown. He was somewhat worried for Mo Qingqing. At this moment, Mo Qingqing's hands folded into ancient seals. Her entire body was enveloped by a holy radiance, and as she basked in the radiance, she seemed even more like an immortal from the mortal world. Such a woman shouldn't exist in this world. How beautiful, what a halo of holiness. Not only that, her astral soul is extremely rare, it even has a celestial fairy shadow. This was the first time Mo Qingqing unleashed her strength, and the impact it gave off was immense. It was too beautiful, causing people to be in a trance. In front of her, a 9-colored glazed flame floated, as the silhouettes of 2 astral souls appeared behind her. One was the shadow of a celestial fairy, while the other was the glazed flame. The 2 astral souls stacked on top of each other. That celestial fairy's shadow held the glazed flame, so beautiful that it caused people to be dazzled. This scene caused Qin Wendian to sigh in his heart. It has been a few years since he last met Qingqing. She was still as innocent and beautiful as ever, just like the snow maiden from back then. However, Qin Wendian seemed to have forgotten that right now, she was the heavens chosen of the Pill Emperor Hall. In front of others, she was unreachable, as pure and holy as a celestial fairy. How could her strength be weak? She had also obtained ancient luck, and was one of the top 10. One of them exuded boundless devil might. while the other was like a celestial fairy. The contrast was intense. The black-robed figure finally made his move. His silhouette lunged out as a terrifying devil palm imprint slammed down, causing rumbling sounds of thunder to ring out in the air as his devil might engulfed this entire space. Mo Qingqing's palms trembled as the 9-colored glazed flame transformed into 9 petals that floated forward. A terrifying heat wave gushed forth, gushing towards the black-robed figure. The terrifying devil might actually retreated slightly, as though it feared the 9-colored flames. Mo Qingqing's movement technique was exquisite. She abruptly dashed forward. The flames arced through the air in a beautiful arc, shooting towards the black-robed figure's face. The black-robed figure placed his palms in front of him and abruptly pressed them together, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. After which, a devil palm imprint blasted out, capable of annihilating everything. Break! Mo Qingqing coldly snorted. The 9-colored flames actually penetrated through the devil palm, continuing towards the black-robed figure's face. This caused the eyes of the black-robed figure to stiffen. His black robes fluttered as the 9-colored flames directly drilled into his robes. Careful! Qin Wenyan suddenly felt a sense of unease. His black robes started burning, but there was no sign of the black-robed figure. He directly appeared beside Mo Qingqing, clad in a terrifying devil armor. A black-colored devil palm imprint descended from the sky, slamming towards Mo Qingqing. Mo Qingqing's silhouette flickered as she transformed into a blurry shadow, giving off a blurry feeling, as though she was in the void. The Great Calamity! A cold and hoarse voice filled the air. The figure of the black-robed man also seemed to turn into nothingness, about to disappear without a trace. Such a scene was extremely shocking. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The Vermilion Bird Arena platform trembled violently as the 9-colored flames flew back. The two of them collided in a frenzy, and a thunderous sound echoed out as their silhouettes separated. After which, the spectators saw the black-robed figure enveloped in devilish qi. Mo Qingqing was panting slightly, yet the halo of light around her seemed to be able to heal her injuries. An instant later, her aura stabilized, and she was as pure and holy as ever. The black-robed figure inclined his head and stared at the sky. In an instant, devil might gushed forth, causing rumbling sounds to echo out. It was as though numerous ancient devils were standing in the air. The chaotic devil art of the heavenly devil art caused the skies to change color. How tyrannical, what kind of pain would one have to endure to cultivate such a devil art? The hearts of the spectators trembled. For a devil cultivator, the stronger the cultivation art, the more dangerous it would be. In fact, even if one cultivated it smoothly, they would still develop a devilish nature. A heavy expression appeared on Mo Qingqing's face. Both her hands formed ancient seals as a resplendent halo of light enveloped her. Numerous illusory figures appeared, making it impossible to tell which one was the real Mo Qingqing. Boom! The black-robed figure stepped out as devilish lightning descended from the sky. A towering devilish might swept across the entire Vermilion Bird Arena, and with every step the black-robed figure took, his aura grew even more terrifying. Qin Wenyan's heart tightened as a cold light flashed in his eyes. No matter who it was, he wouldn't be able to harm Mo Qingqing. The spectators stared intently at the arena platform. This was the most violent battle they had ever witnessed so far. Towering devilish might enveloped the skies as the number of Mo Qingqing's illusory figures increased. Rumble! Finally, the black-robed figure unleashed his most terrifying attack. The devilish might of the heavens and earth converged together, slamming downwards. Countless devil palms and terrifying long spears manifested as they smashed downwards. Mo Qingqing let out a shrill cry as the glass flames erupted forth, causing a resplendent glow to appear on the arena platform. Pung! A terrifying sound of collision rang out as the spectators only saw Mo Qingqing and Mo Qingqing's silhouette being flung through the air, while the black-robed figure remained standing in his original position. Mo Qingqing coughed out a mouthful of fresh blood as her countenance turned as pale as paper. She sat cross-legged and swallowed a medicinal pill, allowing the glow of her astral soul to envelop her body, recovering her aura. The black-robed figure stood there unmoving, as drops of fresh blood dripped from his wounds. He was still clad in his black robes. "You've won." Emo Qingsheng spoke in a low voice as she stared at the black-robed figure, only to see that the black-robed figure's countenance was devoid of emotions as he turned and walked down the arena platform. Emo Qingsheng also left. However, this battle had left a deep impression on the spectators. Regardless of the black-robed figure or Emo Qingsheng, both of them were so powerful. The black-robed figure didn't choose to continue challenging. This time around, she directly replaced Emo Qingsheng's position, entering the top 10. Emo Qingsheng had lost a battle and was squeezed out of the top 10, becoming ranked number 11. Only 15 people remained. The top 5 were Emo Qingsheng, Wang Ju, Hua Shaoqing, Yan Cheng and Li Yu. Li Yu of the Thousand-Ju Alliance had no choice but to challenge Yan Cheng. In the end, he was defeated and was ranked number 15 on the Heavenly Fate rankings. Yan Cheng fought against Hua Shaoqing and was defeated. His final ranking was number 14. Hua Shaoqing fought against Wang Ju and was defeated. His final ranking was number 13. Those who challenged those ranked higher than them were actually extremely rare. Now it was Wang Ju's turn. His ranking was temporarily number 12, and those ranked higher than him were all extremely terrifying characters. The battle between Emo Qingsheng and the black-robed figure had already left a deep impression on the spectators. In the end, the black-robed figure defeated Emo Qingsheng. Wang Ju didn't have absolute confidence in winning. On the arena platform, Wang Ju's gaze was as sharp as a divine weapon. He swept his gaze over to the remaining 11 contenders. He, Wang Ju, had to step into the top 10. If he wanted to enter the top 10, he had to defeat at least one of them. Chen Wang, Sherpatian, Si Qiong, Zhan Chen, Emperor Azure, Qin Zheng, Yun Mingyi, Mu Feng, Qin Wenyan, and the black-robed figure. Wang Ju was ranked number 6 on the Heavenly Fate rankings. Now, how could he not even step into the top 10? Where would he put his face? Chen Wang, Sherpatian, Si Qiong, Zhan Chen and Emperor Azure were all eliminated by him. Qin Zheng was mysterious and unfathomable. Yun Mingyi was similarly mysterious. Mu Feng was originally ranked number 7 on the Heavenly Fate rankings, one rank behind him. However, Mu Feng's proficiency in poison was something Wang Ju wasn't willing to antagonize. Qin Wenyan had overwhelming strength and defense, while the black-robed figure had an incomparably tyrannical cultivation art. Since he had to choose one, the person he chose was none other than Qin Wenyan. Wang Ju's gaze was like a divine weapon, penetrating through everything, landing on Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan seemed to have sensed Wang Ju's gaze. He inclined his head and stared at Wang Ju. "Come on up," Wang Ju indifferently stated. Qin Wenyan stepped out, instantly landing on the arena platform. It seemed like he was still one of the easiest contenders to deal with. Wang Ju had chosen him. "You will be the stepping stone for me to enter the top 10 of the Heavenly Fate rankings. You have no hope at all in this battle." Wang Ju's astral soul erupted forth as a brilliant radiance shone from him. His body was actually clad in a layer of divine armor. This wasn't a divine weapon, but it seemed to be a divine weapon. His palms were also as sharp as a divine weapon. Wang Ju from the Wang clan of the War Continent was as though his entire body was forged from a divine weapon. In that case, both his offense and defense would be extremely terrifying. The reason why I chose you is because regardless of offense or defense, I will suppress you completely. You won't stand a chance at all. Wang Ju stepped out as a sharp qi gushed forth, enveloping the entire arena platform. Wang Ju's eyes were filled with a boundless battle intent. He couldn't be defeated, he couldn't afford to be defeated. He had to win this battle, he had the confidence to do so. The eyes of the spectators flickered as they stared at Wang Ju. Maybe his choice was right. Qin Wentian's strength and defense were unparalleled, but Wang Ju's entire person was akin to a supreme divine weapon. Clad in a set of divine armor, he wouldn't be any weaker than Qin Wenyan. Wang Ju wanted to trample on Qin Wenyan, entering the top 10 of the Heavenly Fate rankings. Chapter 377. Wang Ju, a heavens chosen from the Wang clan of the War Continent, was originally ranked number 6 on the Heavenly Fate rankings. If he couldn't even enter the top 10 today, how humiliating would that be? The spectators stared at that sharp silhouette, only to see him walking towards Qin Wenyin. Every step he took caused the sharpness of the heavens and earth to converge upon him. Astral light revolved around him, and the vermilion bird shadow that hovered behind him let out a shrill cry. He would definitely win this battle. After defeating Qin Wendian, he still needed one more victory before he could enter the top 10. Now, there were still 12 participants remaining, and 2 of them had to be eliminated. The spectators stared at Wang Ju. They could feel his confidence in his victory. His astral souls were all divine weapon astral souls that amplified his attacks. Although he appeared to be advancing slowly, every step he took was filled with an overwhelming might. Once he unleashed an attack, it would definitely be earth-shattering. Would Qin Wenyin be able to withstand Wang Ju's attack? At this moment, Wang Ju's entire person seemed to have transformed into a supreme divine weapon. Although Qin Wenyan's physique was as terrifying as an ancient demonic beast's, Wang Ju was incomparably sharp. Not only that, the mandate he had comprehended was also a divine weapon astral soul. As long as one was at the Yuanfu realm, regardless of whether one was a human or a demonic beast, there was no defense that couldn't be broken through. However, when facing Wang Ju, Qin Wenyin naturally wouldn't be so arrogant as to directly use his body to withstand Wang Ju's attack. Although he casually stepped forward, the feeling he gave off was akin to an ancient pine tree that wouldn't fall, or a towering mountain. An intense light radiated from Wang Ju. His entire person was like a divine weapon, piercing towards Qin Wenyin with an indomitable might. At this instant, Qin Wenyin finally stepped out. With just a single step, the might of the heavens and earth congregated around him, as though he was one with the heavens and earth. This simple action of his was akin to borrowing the power of the heavens and earth. Qin Wenyin only felt Wang Ju's eyes fixated on him, as a beam of light shot out. "You won't be able to block me." As soon as Wang Ju finished speaking, a bright light shone. At the same time, Qin Wenyan's palm also blasted out. Strength. Although Wang Ju could suppress him in both strength and defense, then he would just have to compete purely in terms of strength and the strength of his martial will. On the arena platform, a resplendent beam of white light pierced the eyes of the spectators. When they regained their vision, they saw that Qin Wenyin was still standing there unmoving, while Wang Ju retreated to the edge of the arena platform. Blood flowed from the corners of his mouth, and his countenance was pale. "How can your attack suppress me?" Qin Wenyin slowly stepped out, moving towards Wang Ju. Yet with every step he took, he gave off a feeling that his movements were as natural as the heavens. Wang Ju paled when he saw Qin Wenyin nearing him. That clash earlier had shattered his confidence. Wang Ju saw that Qin Wenyin was getting closer, yet he didn't know how to deal with it. He had always been proud of his strongest attacks, but now that his attack was being suppressed, how could he deal with Qin Wenyin? Step by step, Qin Wenyan's demonic qi surged. That devilishly handsome countenance of his gave off a sense of helplessness. With a flick of his palm, 18 spears appeared before Wang Ju. He coughed out a mouthful of blood as the spears buzzed, as though they had come to life. A fearsome mandate was infused into them, as they buzzed incessantly, as though they wanted to tear apart the heavens and earth. B. Golden light flashed as a pair of golden rock wings appeared behind Qin Wenyin, exuding a sense of sharpness. Qin Wenyan's silhouette flickered as he vanished from sight. Wang Ju's countenance drastically changed as he coughed out another mouthful of blood. He punched out with his palms as the 18 spears exploded forth. However, at the same time, a beam of golden light streaked through the spears, emitting a terrifying sound. In just an instant, Wang Ju discovered that Qin Wenyin had already appeared before him. A dragon imprint slammed down, akin to the roar of a true dragon, causing the heavens and earth to tremble unceasingly. An expression of panic appeared on Wang Ju's face. He gathered his strength, transforming his palms into divine weapons as he frenziedly retaliated. However, as the roar of the dragon rang out, its might shook the heavens and earth. Rumble's terrifying sound waves engulfed the area as Wang Ju's body was instantly blasted to the point where he spat out a mouthful of blood. Qin Wenyan stood calmly on the Vermilion Bird Arena platform, exuding boundless demonic qi. The crowd stared at his silhouette, their eyes filled with shock. That devilishly handsome face of his gave off an unfathomable feeling. Just a casual glance at him would cause the hearts of the spectators to tremble. Right now, Qin Wenyan's mandate of demons had reached the second level, the third level of the fiend transformation art. With a single thought, he could form a pair of demonic wings. With a single thought, he could transform into a demon. Not only that, this transformation wasn't like the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation art, it was reversible. Naturally, Qin Wenyan's attacks were even more terrifying than before. Back then, he could execute the 81 demonic innate techniques as he pleased. Wang Ju, rank 12, Old Man Tianji slowly announced, causing the gazes of the spectators to turn to the ranking board floating in the air. Wang Ju's name landed beside the rank 12. Once, he was ranked 6th on the Heavenly Fate rankings. Now, he was ranked 12th. Although this was somewhat ironic, one could imagine how terrifying the Heavenly Fate rankings this time around were. Wang Ju, who was ranked 6th, couldn't even step into the top 10. Since Wang Ju was defeated, it was now Mo Qingqing's turn. Because she was defeated by the black-robed figure, she was temporarily ranked 11th. Since the top 10 didn't have a ranking yet, if she wanted to enter again, she would have to defeat one of the top 10 before she could enter the top 10. However, how difficult would it be? Chen Wang, Sherpatian, Si Qiong, Zhan Chen, Emperor Azure, Qin Zheng, Yun Mingyi, Mu Feng, Qin Wenyan, and the black-robed figure. Initially, the spectators thought that Qin Wenyan would be easier to deal with. However, Wang Ju was completely crushed by Qin Wenyan, causing the spectators to re-evaluate the combat prowess of the top 10. There were no weaklings among them, and none of them were able to determine their final rankings. All of them were too terrifying. Since you have ancient luck, if I were to let you fight against one of them, you would definitely be unsatisfied. In that case, I will give you a chance to be ranked the same as them. At this moment, Old Man Tianji suddenly spoke, causing expressions of shock to appear on the faces of the spectators. After which, they nodded their heads lightly. At this moment, the remaining 11 were the true elites of the Heavenly Dipper tournament. If Mo Qingqing were to challenge any one of the top 10, there was a possibility that she would make a mistake. Old Man Tianji might have given Mo Qingqing a chance on account of her great luck, hence, he decided to give her a chance. This might be unfair to Wang Ju and the others, but who would dare to doubt that Old Man Tianji was willing to give Mo Qingqing a chance? Now, the remaining 11 would be fighting for the final rankings. Next, I will announce the battles. The 10 of you will fight against each other 50-50. Chen Wang was ranked 2nd in the previous Heavenly Fate rankings, so he will be exempted from this round. For this round, the 5 victors will join Chen Wang in the top 6, while the 5 losers will be temporarily placed in the bottom 5. However, the bottom 5 will still have a chance to challenge the top 6. If they win, they will replace the top 6, and if they lose, they will have no choice but to fight for a spot higher than the 6th rank. Old Man Tianji stared at the crowd as he spoke. Everyone could accept the fact that he would allow Chen Wang to be exempted from this round. Chen Wang was the one who was favored the most. After all, he was originally ranked 2nd in the Heavenly Fate rankings, with the exception of Hua Taishu. Sherpatian against Qin Zheng, Si Qiong against Mu Feng, Zhan Chen against Yun Mingyi, Emperor Azure against the black-robed figure, Qin Wenyan against Mo Qingqing. Old Man Tianji's announcement caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. Every single one of the battles was so powerful that it could stir the hearts of the spectators. However, it seemed that Old Man Tianji had put a lot of thought into this arrangement. Sherpatian, Si Qiong, Zhan Chen, Emperor Azure, and the others were favored. They didn't have to fight against each other, but as for why he arranged for Qin Wenyan and Mo Qingqing to be in the same group, it caused many to be puzzled. Maybe it was a random choice by Old Man Tianji, and there wasn't any deeper meaning behind it. The first battle, Sherpatian against Qin Zheng. The first battle was a battle between heavyweights. Qin Zheng had fought against Chen Wang before in the Vermilion Bird Formation grounds. Not only that, he wasn't completely suppressed by Chen Wang. He was extremely powerful and was able to control the will of the Mandate of Space. Arranging for Sherpadian to be in the same group as him, one couldn't help but say that this would definitely be an extremely fascinating battle. Those from the Sher clan all had the bloodline of an ancient demonic beast in their veins, making them incomparably tyrannical. Sherpadian stood on the Vermilion Bird arena, exuding a tyrannical aura. Chen Wang, Sherpadian, and Si Qiong were the top 3 contenders for the ranking battle this time around. All of them were extremely powerful. Qin Zheng stood on the Vermilion Bird arena platform, yet he exuded a carefree aura. His demeanor had always been like this, extremely casual. Boom. Sherpadian took the initiative to attack. The ancient demonic beast bloodline in his veins erupted forth, and in an instant, a golden dragon-shaped armor covered his body, incomparably majestic. A golden long spear appeared in his hands. Ping! Sherpadian pierced out with his spear, causing the roars of dragons to shake the heavens. It was as though a golden demonic dragon was roaring. This is the ultimate art of Grand Xia that the Sher clan has mastered. Out of the 9 ultimate arts, the Golden Dragon Battle art is the only one that's suitable for demonic cultivators to cultivate. This is the Golden Dragon Battle art. The might of this battle art is boundless, with terrifying attacks and a golden dragon-shaped armor for defense. The members of the Sher clan all possess the bloodline of ancient demonic beasts, making them the most suitable to cultivate this art. This Sherpadian has clearly immersed himself in this art for many years. This spear strike caused the roars of dragons to reverberate through the heavens. The spectators instantly understood that this was an ultimate art of Grand Xia, one that had been passed down to the Sher clan all this time, just like the Great Solar Universe art of the Great Solar Qin clan. Qin Zheng was most probably in danger. The two of them engaged in a frenzied battle on the Vermilion Bird Arena platform. Qin Zheng's spatial laceration attacks were also extremely terrifying. He was actually able to slash apart the golden dragon-shaped armor and injure Sherpadian. Not only that, Qin Zheng's speed was also extremely fast, and his dodging abilities were also extremely strong. If it wasn't for Sherpadian's terrifying strength, he would have long been defeated. But even when fighting against Sherpadian, Qin Zheng wasn't suppressed at all. Fascinating. Such a battle is simply too fascinating. Not only that, none of the following battles would disappoint the spectators. This is what a true pinnacle battle should be like. The spectators exclaimed in admiration when they saw the battle between the two of them. This was too fascinating. Since Sherpadian was so powerful, how could Chen Wang be weak as well? The final battle, the battle for the top 3 positions, how magnificent would it be? How much anticipation! Chapter 378. Sherpadian fought against Qin Zheng with an earth-shattering might. Sherpadian's attacks were ferocious and tyrannical, while Qin Zheng was proficient in many different innate techniques. Not only that, he was able to unleash them perfectly. Although Qin Zheng's attacks were weaker than Sherpadian's, he still wasn't defeated. Finally, at the instant the two of them came into contact with each other, astral energy abruptly erupted. Terrifying astral soul shackles materialized around Qin Zheng's body, instantly coiling around Sherpadian's body, as though wanting to bind a dragon. Qin Zheng's body erupted with a powerful spatial light as a gust of wind swept past, manifesting a resplendent dimensional void sword in the air. Slash! Qin Zheng coldly roared. In that instant, it felt as though space itself was about to be sliced apart. The gazes of the crowd turned to Sherpadian, wondering if he would be able to withstand this attack. Sherpadian's eyes gleamed with a terrifying sharpness. He didn't evade, it was as though he was waiting for that attack to land. Bzz. Abruptly, Qin Zheng's attack landed, but Sherpadian's silhouette had already vanished into thin air. After which, Qin Zheng's countenance drastically changed. Wind energy enveloped him as he retreated with extreme speed. Pang! A terrifying force slammed into Qin Zheng, sending him flying through the air. While he was still in the air, he coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood. Stabilizing himself, Qin Zheng stared at the arena platform. His aura fluctuated wildly as blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. There was no anger in his eyes, no shame of defeat, only calmness. Earlier, was that the ultimate art of Grand Xia you exchanged for? Sherpadian stood on the arena platform, staring at Qin Zheng as he calmly replied, "You should be proud of yourself for being able to fight to such an extent. Given your strength, you still have a chance to enter the top 6. As for that attack earlier, it was the only ultimate movement technique of Grand Xia. Not only that, it only has a single stance, stellar transposition." Indeed, stellar transposition. No wonder. The hearts of the crowd trembled. Other than the Golden Dragon battle art, Sherpadian had also comprehended stellar transposition. How terrifying would his combat prowess be now? Although the stellar transposition was only a single move, it was able to instantly change one's position. This move required a terrifying amount of astral energy to be able to be unleashed. Although Sherpadian seemed to have gone berserk, he was actually extremely cautious. He had been guarding against Qin Zheng all this while, which was why he chose to unleash the stellar transposition at the most crucial moment. In a battle of life and death, such a movement technique could sometimes save one's life. Sometimes, it could even reverse the situation and kill the opponent. Although Sherpadian seemed to be stronger than Qin Zheng had many tricks up his sleeves, forcing Sherpadian to use revolving star passage to win. In this case, Sherpotion's ranking was temporarily in the top 6, and Qin Zheng's ranking was temporarily in the bottom 5. However, with Qin Zheng's strength, he still had a chance to enter the top 6. Next, the second battle was between Si Qiong and Mu Feng. The instant the two of them stepped onto the arena platform, the hearts of the spectators that had just calmed down were once again filled with excitement. Si Qiong was the strongest dark horse in the heavenly fate rankings, while Mu Feng's temperament had undergone a drastic change. How intense would their battle be? Do you think you can escape by refusing the deal? Si Qiong stared at Mu Feng as a cold light flashed in his eyes. A powerful might gushed forth from him as he lunged towards Mu Feng. What Si Qiong was referring to was naturally Mu Feng's refusal to exchange the secret arts of Grand Xia for the 9 ultimate arts. Other than the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia, the secret arts of Grand Xia were all extraordinary as well. They had always wanted to obtain them, but who would have thought that the vermilion bird formation of Grand Xia would obstruct them? Not only that, their supreme experts didn't dare to destroy the vermilion bird formation so easily. If the vermilion bird formation destroyed everything within it, everything would become nothing. However, the power he was in was extremely patient. So what if it took a few thousand years? To some of the elders, they could still afford to wait. Now that the constellation fate of Grand Xia had changed, the power he was in sent here to Grand Xia. How could they possibly fail? Just like what the supreme experts had predicted, after the constellation fate of Grand Xia changed, the ranking battle for the heavenly fate rankings had also changed. The ancient luck of the vermilion bird formation had appeared, but the formation was destroyed. Since that was the case, he naturally had to obey the order to obtain the secret arts of Grand Xia. How naive were these people to think that they could stay behind? Si Qiong clearly didn't put Mu Feng in his eyes. In his eyes, Mu Feng and the others had no hope of escaping. Nobody would be able to stop them. These people were simply courting death. Mu Feng's countenance was calm as he stared at Si Qiong. Boom! The will of the mandate of blood erupted forth, causing Si Qiong to feel the blood in his body trembling. He coldly laughed as a resplendent light radiated from him, as a terrifying heat emanated from him, akin to the Great Solar Universe art. That's the Great Solar Universe art. The spectators were all stunned when they saw this scene. Si Qiong was also proficient in the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia. A golden ancient sword appeared in Si Qiong's hands. Stepping out, he slashed out with his sword, causing it to descend from the heavens. It was as though the heavenly sword had blossomed, blazing flames burning the heavens. Heavenly swordplay, Great Solar Universe art. Old Man Tianji and the rest felt their hearts trembling when they saw this scene. Although they knew that these people had obtained the complete 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia, They still couldn't help but sigh in their hearts when they saw how easily Si Qiong could unleash the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia. Mu Feng's silhouette flickered as he waved his palms. Instantly, a pitch-black poisonous palm imprint blasted out, exuding a terrifying and sinister aura. Sizzling sounds rang out as the palm imprint was instantly torn apart. Si Qiong's palms trembled as the terrifying heat of the sun incinerated the poisonous palm imprint. His silhouette was like the wind as he continued chasing after Mu Feng, slashing out with his sword once more. A resplendent light flashed as Mu Feng was forced to retreat repeatedly. If it wasn't for the fact that he was proficient in the mandate of wind, it would have been extremely difficult for him to evade the might of the heavenly swordplay. Si Qiong's silhouette landed on the ground. His lips trembled as a voice drifted out, resembling a melody. The melody transformed into terrifying runes, transforming into a formless energy that drilled into Mu Feng's eardrums. Mu Feng furrowed his brows as he felt a splitting headache, as though even his soul was trembling. Si Qiong stepped out step by step. The melody continued to corrode Mu Feng's body. Mu Feng's long hair fluttered in the wind as he stared at Si Qiong, only to see Si Qiong's silhouette flickering as he slashed out with his sword once more. Mu Feng retreated once more. Fush! A beam of blood splattered onto the arena platform, forcing Mu Feng into a corner. The melody continued as Si Qiong walked towards him step by step. A soul attack technique. The hearts of many in the crowd pounded. This Si Qiong was too terrifying. They suddenly realized that Chen Wang wasn't the most terrifying existence in the heavenly fate rankings. Not only did Si Qiong specialize in the ultimate arts of Grand Xia, he also had such a terrifying soul attack technique. The soul was an illusory existence. Yuanfu realm cultivators wouldn't even be able to sense the existence of a soul. However, Si Qiong had a terrifying talent related to the soul, which was why he was able to cultivate soul attacks. At this instant, Si Qiong's silhouette vanished as an intense astral light erupted forth. Stellar transposition. Si Qiong's silhouette instantly appeared in front of Mu Feng, his palms directly grabbing onto Mu Feng's head. His lips trembled unceasingly as the melody drifted into Mu Feng's ears. This scene caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble violently. How powerful! This dark horse Si Qiong was simply too terrifying. What was he doing? Soul search. It's rumored that there are people who are proficient in soul manipulation techniques that can search the soul of others. Si Qiong is searching Mu Feng's soul? For those whose souls are searched, there's a possibility that they would become a retard, a cripple. The countenances of Qin Wenin and the rest all flickered with a cold light when they saw this scene. They understood what Si Qiong wanted to do. He, Mu Feng, Mo Qingqing, Yun Mingyi and Qin Jing had all rejected those people. Was Si Qiong planning to deal with them like this? Not only that, Si Qiong's strength was truly terrifying. Qin Wendian stared at Mu Feng on the arena platform. Mu Feng's family had been murdered. Could it be that he would die before the culprit was found? If Si Qiong obtained what he wanted, he definitely wouldn't spare Mu Feng. Chi. On the arena platform, Si Qiong's arm abruptly started to corrode. After which, the corrosion frenziedly spread throughout his entire body. Black qi appeared on his face as Si Qiong's countenance abruptly changed. After which, from Mu Feng's body, a terrifying stream of black blood gushed out. Boom! Terrifying astral light flashed as Si Qiong executed stellar transposition once more. His silhouette shifted backwards as he stared at his arm, his countenance turning ashen. Mu Feng opened his eyes, only to feel an intense pain in his head. He coldly glanced at Si Qiong before turning and stepping down the arena platform. Although he was heavily injured, he was still as calm as ever. So calm that it was terrifying to look at. Nobody could stand so close to Mu Feng, not even Si Qiong. His silhouette was like the wind as he instantly descended the arena platform and sat down cross-legged. Rays of resplendent light enveloped his body as he began to expel the poison from his body. Evidently, he didn't have it easy in the earlier battle. The victor of this battle was naturally Si Qiong. He was ranked within the top 6, and his strength had left a deep impression on the spectators. And as for Mu Feng, although he was defeated, he also left a deep impression on the spectators. The third battle, Zhang Qin against Yun Mingyi. The instant Zhang Qin stepped onto the arena platform, his eyes flickered with a terrifying self-confidence. His gaze flickered with a golden light as he stared at Yun Mingyi. "What's your relationship with Qin Wendian?" He still remembered back then when he chased after Qin Wendian, Yun Mingyi and the black-robed figure had interfered. "It has nothing to do with you," Yun Mingyi calmly replied. A sharp astral sword appeared in her palms as a terrifying frost intent gushed forth from her. "I won't kill you." Zhang Qin stared at Yun Mingyi as he stepped out. "I know the heavenly swordplay as well." As the sound of his voice faded, a golden sword appeared in his palms. With a flick of his palm, the golden sword seemed to be borrowing the light of the heavens and earth, incomparably dazzling. Rays of golden light enveloped Zhang Qin's body, transforming into an indestructible golden body. His silhouette flickered as he dashed towards Yun Mingyi. In Zhang Qin's eyes, a resplendent light erupted forth. That was a golden blade, piercing towards Yun Mingyi. Instantly, Yun Mingyi felt a piercing pain in her eyes. It was as though there was a golden silhouette in her opponent's eyes, wielding a sharp sword, punishing her. Yun Mingyi slammed out with her palms as a terrifying frost energy froze everything in its path. She didn't retreat, on the contrary, she took a step forward as the heavenly swordplay descended. 9 swords intertwined, the might contained within was incomparably terrifying. Zhang Qin was still staring at her. Yun Mingyi's forehead was drenched in cold sweat, but her sword wouldn't show any mercy. "Puchi!" The sword slashed downwards, slamming into Zhang Qin's body. The golden body seemed to have split apart, yet the spectators discovered that Zhang Qin was fine. The golden body seemed to be an illusion. His sword similarly slashed out as a cold and sharp smile flickered in his eyes. Blood splattered, dyeing Yun Mingyi's robes red. Yun Mingyi's body was flung through the air. Qin Wendian waved his palms as a surge of energy enveloped Yun Mingyi's body, allowing her to land on the ground. Inclining his head, Qin Wendian stared at Zhang Qin, who was standing on the arena platform. Zhang Qin walked to the edge of the platform and was similarly staring at him. Zhang Qin's sword was pointed straight at Qin Wendian. The smile in his golden eyes was filled with demonic self-confidence. Chapter 379. How is this possible? Earlier, Yun Mingyi's sword strike had clearly landed on Zhang Qin's body, even shattering his golden body. How could he be unharmed? The battle between Zhang Qin and Yun Mingyi ended in the blink of an eye. Even after Yun Mingyi was injured, the spectators still couldn't understand how Zhang Qin was able to defeat Yun Mingyi unscathed. This Pill Emperor, who was ranked number 11 in the previous Heavenly Fate rankings, gave off an unfathomable feeling. Even Wang Ju, who was ranked number 6, was eliminated so easily, yet this Pill Emperor had temporarily stepped into the top 6. Zhang Qin was also a powerful dark horse, and he was extremely terrifying. This ranking battle was getting more and more unfathomable to the spectators. Right now, each and every contender was so strong that it was unfathomable. Gradually, they revealed their true strength, revealing their sinister countenances. Nobody knew what their trump cards were, even up until now. Qin Wendian stared at Zhang Qin. He could clearly feel the killing intent Zhang Qin had towards him. The grudge between the two of them had never been resolved, and not only that, back then, Qin Wendian had revealed Zhang Qin's scandal, causing Mo Qingqing to despise him. One could very well imagine how deep Zhang Qin's hatred for Qin Wendian was. Today, on the Heavenly Fate rankings, Zhang Qin wanted to let those from the Pill Emperor Hall see, let Mo Qingqing see, how he tortured and killed Qin Wendian. Today, in the ranking battle, his name would resound throughout Grand Xia. Turning, Zhang Qin's silhouette flickered as he walked down the platform. Zhang Qin was temporarily ranked in the top 6, while Yun Mingyi was ranked in the bottom 5. The next battle was between Emperor Azure and the black-robed figure. Emperor Azure was ranked number 5 in the previous Heavenly Fate rankings. Today, he was ranked number 3 among the top 5 contenders. The other two were Qin Wang and Sherpadian. This person, Emperor Azure, had always been extremely mysterious. No one had ever heard of which clan or power he came from. He was the most low-profile ranker in the previous Heavenly Fate rankings, and this time around he was still as low-profile as ever. However, no one dared to ignore his existence. As for the black-robed figure, he was similarly mysterious. Nobody knew where he came from, not even his real name, or whether he was a man or a woman. Naturally, everyone was looking forward to the duel between the two. The two of them stood on the arena platform as the silhouette of the vermilion bird let out a low roar. Emperor Azure had a smile on his face, exuding a carefree aura. He stared at the black-robed figure as he stated, "Since you're participating in the Heavenly Fate rankings, why don't you show us your true face?" The black-robed man ignored Emperor Azure. He stared at him as a devilish might gushed forth from him. "Today, I shall experience your demonic arts." Emperor Azure stepped out as his silhouette transformed into a series of afterimages. Abruptly, several incarnations of Emperor Azure appeared on the arena platform, all of them blurry and indistinct. It was as though there were many incarnations of Emperor Azure, and each of them wielded a sharp sword in their hands. Emperor Azure's phantom sword art. His mandate of illusions is terrifying to the extreme. When he uses the phantom sword art, who would be able to differentiate reality from illusion? Emperor Azure's swordsmanship was astonishing. With a single strike, the illusory figures all erupted with a terrifying sword might as they shot towards the black-robed figure. Devilish chi coalesced around the black-robed figure as he brandished a long spear in his hands. His palms trembled as he executed a tyrannical spear technique, suppressing the incoming sword lights. However, Emperor Azure's swordsmanship was superior in terms of quantity. The illusory figures also transformed into a sword as they slashed towards the throat of the black-robed figure. The black-robed man was clad in an armor of the devil path. Terrifying devil might converged above his head as a fearsome pressure permeated the air. After that, he blasted out with his palm as a chaotic devil might swept through everything, causing all the illusory figures to explode. The black-robed figure didn't even bother to differentiate reality from illusion. He only focused on using his tyrannical attacks to destroy them all. However, how could Emperor Azure be so easy to deal with? His silhouette soared up into the skies. In the eyes of the black-robed figure, it was unknown how many Azure Emperors appeared. They borrowed the astral light of the heavens and earth as their swords shimmered resplendently. Is this the heavenly swordplay? Emperor Azure cultivated the heavenly swordplay? However, it doesn't seem like it. He isn't as pure as Yunmengi. The spectators only saw the heavenly swordplay appearing as the black-robed figure inclined his head. Devilish lightning crackled as a terrifying devilish might permeated the air, crushing everything. His black robes fluttered in the wind as he stepped out, exuding an incomparably terrifying aura. The spectators only saw terrifying devilish long spears appearing before the black-robed figure. As he blasted out, the long spears pierced through the skies, annihilating everything. When the black-robed figure fought, no one could see his will of mandates, nor could they see his astral energy. The only thing they could see was the boundless devilish might he exuded. Emperor Azure's sword slashed downwards as his astral souls appeared. The first astral soul was the sword-type astral soul, while the second was the evil-eyed astral soul. His eyes turned demonic as he stared at the black-robed figure. Sword light flashed once more, but in an instant, a silhouette abruptly appeared beside the black-robed figure, slashing out with a sword. Is that stellar transposition? Astonishment and shock appeared on the faces of the spectators. How could Emperor Azure know so many ultimate arts of Grand Xia? He wasn't someone from the 7 ancient clans of Grand Xia. Or more accurately, that wasn't the heavenly swordplay or stellar transposition. Puchi, a light sound rang out as the robes of the black-robed figure were dyed red with blood. He retreated as he coldly stared at Emperor Azure. At this moment, Emperor Azure's demonic eyes grew increasingly demonic, becoming exceedingly terrifying. His third astral soul from the 5th heavenly layer appeared, the blood-winged devil ape. Ranked number 2 in the War Beast Index, the blood-winged devil ape. Expressions of shock appeared on the faces of the spectators. The mysterious Emperor Azure actually possessed such a powerful technique. The eyes of the black-robed figure were as cold as ever, as though he didn't care about the injury on his arm. The chaotic heavenly devil might erupted forth, as the entire arena platform turned black. A terrifying black-colored devil dragon coiled around his body, before transforming into a terrifying devil saber, the heavenly devil saber. The black-robed figure walked towards Emperor Azure step by step. At this moment, the aura emanating from him caused Emperor Azure to feel a trace of fear in his heart. Boom! Demonic chi enveloped Emperor Azure's body, causing it to become incomparably terrifying. A violent aura gushed forth from him. Fiend transformation art. Qin Wentian's gaze froze when he saw this scene. Emperor Azure had actually cultivated the fiend transformation art as well. According to the Azure Emperor, the fiend transformation art shouldn't have been passed down to those from the D clan. Why did Emperor Azure cultivate it? Only to see Emperor Azure staring at the black-robed figure with a cold countenance. He had been anticipating this ranking battle for far too long. How could he fail this time around? Boom. Stepping out, Emperor Azure's body was enveloped in a terrifying demonic armor. Every step he took caused the entire arena platform to tremble. However, the expression of the black-robed figure didn't even change. His devil saber whistled through the air, exuding a terrifying devilish might that caused the spectators to tremble. 9 slashes of the purgatory. Some of the transcendent powers had some understanding of the chaotic heavenly devil art. When they saw the devil saber slashing out, they knew that this was the incomparably tyrannical 9 slashes of the purgatory. The black-robed figure slashed out the first saber strike, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. As the saber slashed out, the spectators saw a devilish might sweeping past them, as though a demonic dragon from hell had appeared. Emperor Azure stood on the arena platform, similarly punching out with a terrifying might. His punch transformed into a demonic fist that swept out with terrifying might, shattering the devil saber. However, the devilish might grew even more terrifying. The 9 slashes of the purgatory, each slash stronger than the previous, all the way until a purgatory was formed. The second and third saber slashed out, causing the hearts of the spectators to pound unceasingly. The black-robed figure was incomparably calm, but his aura was already frenziedly circulating. It was unknown how many more saber strikes he could endure. Emperor Azure's entire person transformed into a terrifying blood-winged ape. The palm imprints he blasted out were akin to the chaotic heavenly devil art, shocking the spectators. The two of them frenziedly clashed against each other, using offense against offense. When the fourth saber strike appeared, the heavens and earth changed color, transforming into a world of darkness. The black-robed figure coughed out a mouthful of blood, yet he still managed to slash out with his saber. Roar! A thunderous roar echoed out, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. The blood-winged ape unleashed his strongest attack, sweeping away everything in its path. The devilish might and demonic chi caused the entire arena platform to turn pitch black. However, within that pitch-black devilish might, the spectators could see a purgatory devil dragon. That devil dragon transformed into a saber. The purgatory devil dragon saber slashed out with the 5th saber strike. A thunderous sound echoed out as the spectators saw Emperor Azure's demonic form plummeting downwards, ruthlessly slamming into the ground. On the arena platform, the devil saber in the black-robed figure's hand vanished as the devilish might he exuded dissipated. The black-robed figure's footsteps were somewhat unsteady as he walked down the platform step by step. The black veil covering his face was also stained with blood. Yet in such a terrifying battle, he had won. He had defeated the 5th-ranked Emperor Azure of the previous Heavenly Fate rankings. How powerful was he? After this battle, the black-robed figure had officially established his position as a supreme expert. There wouldn't be anyone who dared to challenge him anymore. Emperor Azure reverted back to his original form, his eyes filled with a sense of bewilderment. He had been defeated, he had actually been defeated. Why was that purgatory devil saber so terrifying? Was the chaotic art of the heavenly devil truly the most tyrannical ultimate art in Grand Xia? The price to pay for cultivating the chaotic art of the heavenly devil was the greatest, and the danger was also the greatest. Yet, The might of this art was something that everyone could see. Ooh! The spectators drew in a deep breath, no longer thinking about it. Next, it was time for the fifth and final battle. Qin Wenyin against Emo Qingqing. The heavens chosen from the Pill Emperor Hall, the most beautiful maiden on the heavenly fate rankings. Even in Grand Xia, there weren't many who could be compared to her. Would Qin Wenyin be able to defeat her? The two of them walked up the arena, facing each other. Emo Qingqing's flawless figure was reflected in the eyes of the spectators, causing them to involuntarily sigh in admiration at the wonders of the Creator. She stared at the young man in front of her, as a smile appeared on her face. This smile of hers was so beautiful that it seemed to be able to stun even time itself. Emo Qingqing smiled as she looked at Qin Wenyin. Astonishment appeared on the faces of the spectators, as they couldn't understand. Shouldn't the two of them be engaged in a battle? They then turned to look at Qin Wenyin, only to discover that Qin Wenyin was smiling as well. It was a gentle smile, as though he was looking at a lover he doted on. You finally reached this step. Emo Qingqing smiled lightly, as she spoke in a gentle voice. Her voice was incomparably gentle, as though she was speaking to the person she loved the most. I've always believed that you would be able to do it. Emo Qingqing's long hair fluttered in the wind. The spectators only saw Qin Wenyin slowly walking up to her, placing his hand on her forehead, gently stroking her hair. Emo Qingqing lowered her head slightly, like a shy young lady. She actually allowed Qin Wenyin to do this. Stretching out his hands, Qin Wenyin held onto Emo Qingqing's hand, right in front of the eyes of the spectators, their hands entwined together. Qin Wenyin had said before that he wanted to announce to the world the relationship between him and Emo Qingqing during the ranking battle. She was his woman. Chapter 380. The Vermilion Bird Arena Platform, the location of the heavenly fate rankings. On the arena platform, Qin Wentian's gaze was resolute, while Emo Qingqing's eyes were filled with a smile. This moment was the happiest she had experienced in the past few years. Once, she was a carefree young lady in Chu, pure and innocent. It was only until she met Qin Wenyan that she experienced the taste of love. It was both sweet and bitter, and her heart was always filled with longing. Until Hua Xiaoyun arrived in Chu, everything was broken. She was brought to the Pill Emperor Hall, becoming the heavens chosen of the Pill Emperor Hall. She was the center of attention, pursued by countless men, yet she wasn't happy. From the pure and innocent young lady, she became someone who sealed her heart. Until Hua Xiaoyun arrived in Chu, everything was broken. She was brought to the Pill Emperor Hall and became the heavens chosen of the Pill Emperor Hall. Countless people pursued her, yet she wasn't happy at all. From an innocent young girl, she chose to seal her heart. Until Hua Xiaoyun arrived in Chu, everything was broken. She was brought to the Pill Emperor Hall, becoming the heavens chosen of the Pill Emperor Hall. Countless pursuers pursued her, yet she wasn't happy. From an innocent young lady, she became someone who sealed her heart. All these years, although her alchemy skills and strength grew stronger and stronger, she wasn't happy at all. Until she heard the news of Qin Wenyin. But what was more painful was the fact that they couldn't be together. At this moment, they stood on the arena platform, facing the world. Qin Wenyin held her hand. She didn't feel any shyness, nor did she feel any fear. In her heart, there was only conviction and courage. She, Emo Qingqing, had no regrets. Qin Wenyin was also incomparably resolute. He knew that the people of the world looked down on him. When it came to Emo Qingqing's lover, they would only consider Hua Taishu, Zhang Chen, and the others. Today, he wanted to announce to the world that he was Qin Wenyin, and Emo Qingqing was his woman. Just like that, the two of them held each other's hands tightly, facing the world and bearing all the consequences. They had no regrets. How could this be? The crowd didn't dare to believe their eyes. How could this be? Emo Qingqing was the most outstanding female in Grand Xia in recent years. Why was she holding hands with Qin Wenyin? Why were they together? This seemed to have let down the expectations of the crowd. Wasn't Emo Qingqing supposed to be with Hua Taishu? She and Qin Wenyin had known each other for a long time. Not only did they know each other, but they also fell in love with each other. Those from the Pill Emperor Hall stared at the arena platform. Luo He's countenance was extremely unsightly to behold. She had given Mo Qingqing everything, yet Mo Qingqing didn't listen to her. Bai Fei stared at the two of them as she sighed in her heart. Back then when she first met Qin Wenyin in Chu, never in her wildest dreams would she have imagined that there would be a day like this. He actually dared to hold Mo Qingqing's hand in front of the entire Grand Xia. Not only that, it was on the battle platform of the heavenly fate rankings. A cold glint flickered in Zhang Chen's eyes, emitting a strong killing intent. There were simply too many people who didn't wish Qin Wenyin and Mo Qingqing well. They didn't think highly of these two people, or in other words, they didn't think highly of Qin Wenyin. Although Qin Wenyin was already very outstanding, they couldn't help but feel that it was still insufficient. Those from the White Deer Institute stood together. Bai Lu Yi and Bai Lu Jing stood together. Staring at the two silhouettes of the White Deer Institute, Bai Lu Yi's beautiful eyes flashed with a smile of blessings, yet there were hints of tears in them. He has finally held her hand, standing together in front of the world, Bai Lu Yi murmured. A long time ago, she had heard Qin Wenyin telling her about this story. Now that she saw this pair of lovers, she truly wished them the best. They would definitely have a perfect ending. Bai Lu Yi's lips curled into a carefree smile. Although he had been eliminated long ago, he didn't seem to mind it at all. He hugged Bai Lu Yi beside him as Bai Lu Jing lightly patted her shoulder, as though consoling her. Bai Lu Yi inclined her head and glanced at Bai Lu Jing as she giggled, "Brother, I know you have a crush on that brat, but you won't be able to hold on to him. Just let him go." Bai Lu Jing sighed. How could he not know what Bai Lu Yi was thinking? Back then when Bai Lu Yi and Qin Wenyin were together, he initially supported Qin Wenyin and even felt that Qin Wenyin was just lucky. But now that he saw Qin Wenyin growing at such a terrifying speed, Bai Lu Jing understood that his sister wouldn't be able to hold on to him. Little E, will he be able to enter the top 3? The large-eyed elder from the White Deer Institute asked in a low voice with a smile on his face. Only those who witnessed it personally would understand how difficult it was to obtain the top 3 rankings. Chen Wang, Sherpadian, Si Qiong, Zhan Qin, the black-robed figure, Qin Jing, Emperor Azure, Mu Feng and the others. Which one of them wasn't terrifying? Qin Jing forcing Sherpadian to such an extent, Mu Feng causing Si Qiong to be poisoned, the black-robed figure and Emperor Azure engaged in a frenzied battle. All of these scenes couldn't be erased from their minds. The ranking battle this time round was simply too terrifying. Naturally. Bai Lu Yi nodded her head. Back then in the star-seizing manner, in the secret realm of the divine inscriptions, who would believe in him? Didn't he succeed? All right, I also hope that he can do it. If not, with him holding the hands of the number 1 beauty of the moon continent, the eyes of the entire world would be able to kill him. The large-eyed elder laughed lightly. That fellow was truly a surprise. Back then, when Di Feng, also known as Emperor Azure, came to the White Deer Institute, who would have thought highly of Qin Wenyin? But now, Qin Wenyin was already standing on the same platform as Emperor Azure. Not only that, Qin Wenyin might even be ahead of Emperor Azure. But earlier, Emperor Azure had been defeated. Countless gazes landed on Qin Wenyin and Mo Qingqing. Xian Yan, Xian Xian, and Li Xiu from the Mystic Maiden Palace. Xu Ruanyu from the Moon Continent, Ouyang Quangxing and Ouyang Xiaolu from the Ouyang aristocrat clan, all of them had different thoughts in their minds. But no matter what the people of the world thought, Qin Wenyin and Mo Qingqing wouldn't care. Since they had chosen to hold hands on the platform, they had already tossed everything aside and had nothing to fear. I concede. Mo Qingqing gently smiled. She didn't participate in the heavenly fate rankings for the sake of ranking. She didn't care whether she was first or last, she didn't care. For this battle, she chose to give up, to pave the way for Qin Wenyin. As expected, Mo Qingqing admitted defeat. When the spectators saw the two of them holding hands, they had already guessed that Mo Qingqing would directly grant Qin Wenyin his wish, single-handedly pushing him into the top 6 rankings. As the sound of Mo Qingqing's voice faded, the top 6 rankings were revealed. They were Chen Wang, Sherpadian, Si Qiong, Zhang Chen, the black-robed figure, and Qin Wenyin. However, their positions weren't stable, because those in the bottom 5 rankings might issue a challenge to them. Once they were defeated, their positions would be replaced. The gazes of the spectators shifted onto Qin Wenyin. Among the top 5, other than Mo Qingqing, the first person they would challenge would be none other than Qin Wenyin. Qin Wenyin and Mo Qingqing walked down the platform together, and even after they left, they still stood together. Old Man Tianji announced the conclusion of the battle. Next, it would be time for the challengers. Those in the bottom 5 rankings would still have the opportunity to issue a challenge, but first, they would be given a night of rest. After all, the battle earlier had been extremely intense. Below the platform, the spectators were all exceptionally quiet. In the vast corridor outside, the spectators were all discussing in low voices, as though they were still immersed in the scene of Qin Wenyin and Mo Qingqing holding hands. They were all thinking that if they were in Qin Wenyan's shoes, they wouldn't have wasted their time roaming the world. Early in the morning sun hung high up in the skies, filling the air with vitality. In the vast corridor, the gazes of the spectators were all open as they stared at the silhouettes around the platform. Old Man Tianji opened his eyes as he spoke to Qin Zheng. Qin Zheng, you will be the first to issue a challenge. If you win, you will replace him and fight for the top 6 rankings. If you lose, you will fight for the bottom 5 rankings. Qin Zheng nodded his head as he stepped onto the platform once again. The person he challenged was none other than Zhang Chen. Zhang Chen was evidently taken aback. The first person to be challenged was actually him. Radiating a sharp intent, he stepped onto the platform. After which, the spectators witnessed yet another intense battle. As for the ending, Zhang Chen defeated Qin Zheng. It wasn't that Qin Zheng wasn't strong, it was just that he was the same as Yun Mingyi. Qin Zheng's attack had clearly landed on Zhang Chen, yet Zhang Chen seemed to have an indestructible golden body, remaining unscathed. The spectators were already thinking that it was time to re-evaluate Zhang Chen's combat prowess. Next, it was Mu Feng's turn. Mu Feng sat cross-legged, continuing his cultivation. Si Qiong had used a soul attack against him, and soul attacks were the most damaging. I give up the heavenly fate rankings. Mu Feng closed his eyes as he calmly stated, as though he was speaking of an extremely ordinary matter. Fine, Mu Feng shall be ranked number 11 on the heavenly fate rankings. Old Man Tianji nodded. After which, on the resplendent heavenly fate rankings, Mu Feng's name was engraved onto the number 11 ranking. However, no one dared to underestimate him, nor did they dare to forget his name. Although he was ranked number 11, Mu Feng's name was still engraved in the minds of the spectators. After which, it was Yun Mingyi's turn. Glancing at the top 6 rankers, Yun Mingyi calmly stated, I give up on the heavenly fate rankings. Yun Mingyi knew that there was still a gap between her and Qin Zheng. Since Qin Zheng was about to be eliminated, there was no longer any meaning for her to continue fighting. Yun Mingyi, ranked number 10 on the heavenly fate rankings, Old Man Tianji announced. I give up as well, Mo Qingqing replied in a low voice. Mo Qingqing spoke in a low voice. She originally didn't have the will to continue fighting. Next, she only needed to watch Qin Wenyin. Mo Qingqing, ranked number 9 on the heavenly fate rankings. After which, only Emperor Azure was left. Emperor Azure once again stepped onto the platform. His gaze wasn't focused on anyone else, but on Qin Wenyin. Others might not know of Qin Wenyin, but he naturally knew that Qin Wenyin was the possessor of the Azure Emperor token. Qin Wenyin had snatched away something that belonged to him. Qin Wenyin was once again sent into the top 6 rankers of the heavenly fate rankings by Mo Qingqing. It's time for you to step down. The position of number 8 on the heavenly fate rankings is what truly belongs to you. Chapter 381. The battle between Emperor Azure and the black-robed figure was witnessed by the spectators. Emperor Azure's strength was deeply engraved in their hearts. He had cultivated many techniques, and every single one of them was extremely terrifying. Not only that, he was somewhat similar to Qin Wenyin, possessing the ability to transform into a demon, allowing him to become incomparably terrifying. If it wasn't for the fact that the black-robed figure had executed one of the most tyrannical arts of the chaotic art of the heavenly devil, the 9 slashes of purgatory, he might not have been able to defeat Emperor Azure. And yet, at this moment, Qin Wendian stood on the arena platform, declaring that he would defeat Emperor Azure within 10 breaths of time. How arrogant was this? Emperor Azure couldn't believe his own eyes when he heard Qin Wendian's words. Defeat him within 10 breaths of time? Because of Mo Qingqing's admission of defeat, Qin Wendian was able to temporarily enter the top 6. The others were all frantically fighting for the top 6 spots, while he effortlessly entered the top 6. And now, he even dared to say such words to him? If he hadn't heard it with his own ears, he wouldn't have dared to believe it. A demonic light flashed in Emperor Azure's eyes, only to see a pair of tyrannical wings appearing on Qin Wendian's back. 1 breath of time. As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wendian's silhouette vanished from sight. His silhouette was akin to a true great rock, and with a flash, he appeared before Emperor Azure as he blasted out a palm strike. As this palm descended, the sound of bells rang out. Numerous ancient golden bells appeared out of nowhere, giving off a dong-dong sound that contained a mysterious power. These bell chimes directly rang out in the depths of Emperor Azure's heart, ignoring everything else. Not only that, the bell chimes rang out unceasingly. At this moment, Emperor Azure felt as though numerous gigantic ancient bells were slamming into his heart. Such a feeling wasn't something an outsider could understand. In just an instant, Emperor Azure's back was drenched in sweat. With a howl of rage, his astral souls erupted forth as his entire person transformed into a phantom, transforming into a blood-colored demonic ape as he blasted out with a palm strike. Boom! The bell chimes rang out unceasingly, causing Emperor Azure's heart to palpitate madly, as though it would explode at any moment. With a howl of madness, Qin Wendian's palm imprint blasted out. It was similarly the ape strike palm imprint, and as it collided with Emperor Azure's palm imprint, a terrifying might erupted forth. Emperor Azure felt the energy transmitted from Qin Wendian's palm imprint seeping into his body, gushing towards his heart. Lifting his left hand, a devil imprint erupted forth from his palm, slamming towards Qin Wendian's face. A battle of strength. Qin Wendian's mandate of force and mandate of demonic beasts simultaneously erupted forth from his palms. Both palms collided with each other, causing the entire arena platform to tremble as a terrifying shockwave swept through the air. Boom! A powerful surge of astral energy erupted forth as Emperor Azure's silhouette vanished. The spectators only saw his silhouette reappearing behind Qin Wendian's back. Qin Wendian didn't even glance at him as he stabbed out with a single finger. The heaven-breaking finger, a single finger capable of severing the heavens. As the finger pierced out, a terrifying black hole of demonic chi appeared in the air, shooting towards Emperor Azure's heart. At the same time, a third eye appeared in the center of Qin Wendian's brows, directly scanning through the air. In that instant, Emperor Azure felt his mind going blank, as though he was in a daze. With a roar, Emperor Azure slashed out with a resplendent sword strike, imbued with the might of the heavenly swordplay. Astonishment and bewilderment could be seen on the faces of the spectators. Why did Emperor Azure's sword strike Miss Qin Wendian's body? That sword was so beautiful, so resplendent, but it actually slashed the wrong way? As the heaven-breaking finger descended, the purgatory vermilion bird behind Qin Wendian let out a shrill cry as it dashed towards Emperor Azure's vermilion bird. Although its ancient luck was useless now, the purgatory vermilion bird still didn't want to spare Emperor Azure's condensed vermilion bird. The immense power contained within was so great that it felt as though it wanted to shatter Emperor Azure's heart. Qin Wendian turned his gaze onto the vermilion bird, his silhouette flickered as he appeared in front of Emperor Azure, directly grabbing onto his throat. 10 breaths of time shouldn't be up yet, Qin Wendian calmly spoke as he lifted Emperor Azure's body, walking towards the edge of the arena platform. Countless people inclined their heads, staring at the shocking scene unfolding before them. No one knew what they were thinking in their hearts. The shock these people brought to them today was simply too much. Qin Wenyin had heavily injured Emperor Azure within 10 breaths of time. Not only that, he had even used his most tyrannical strength to suppress Emperor Azure, not allowing Emperor Azure to unleash his full strength. In terms of pure strength, Qin Wenyin was even more terrifying compared to Emperor Azure. However, Emperor Azure had many techniques up his sleeves and was proficient in many ultimate arts. Although he wasn't able to unleash much of the power of his ultimate arts, it was still sufficient to shock the world. But sadly, no matter how many techniques he had up his sleeves, all of them were destroyed by that single strike. That terrifying sword strike actually missed? Even at this moment, the spectators still couldn't understand. Given Emperor Azure's strength, how could his attack miss, allowing Qin Wentian's finger strike to strike him? Qin Wenyin carried Emperor Azure's body as he walked to the edge of the arena platform. He stood there, staring at the countless silhouettes, as well as those from the transcendent powers. He told the D clan and the White Deer Institute that his name was Qin Wenyin. He wasn't worthy of Mo Qingqing? Since he had held her hand on the arena platform, he had already made all the preparations he needed today. You are not worthy. Qin Wenyin flung Emperor Azure off the platform. Emperor Azure's countenance paled. He knew what Qin Wenyin meant when he said he wasn't worthy. He wasn't worthy of the Azure Emperor's inheritance. The battle between the two of them was a battle for the successor. Emperor Azure, or more accurately, Di Feng, had suffered a crushing defeat. Those from the D clan were naturally mixed in with the crowd. They had clearly seen that Qin Wenyin had taken out the Azure Emperor token in the White Deer Institute, and those from the Celestial Lake Palace had also appeared there. How could they not know of Qin Wentian's existence? Those from the White Deer Institute were all filled with emotions when they saw the ending of the battle. There would always be a Heaven's Chosen in every generation. In a short span of a few years, Qin Wenyin was able to reverse the situation. Countless people stared at Qin Wenyin, who was standing on the arena platform. His Purgatory Vermilion Bird had devoured Emperor Azure's Vermilion Bird, and was now floating behind him. One man, one demon, they stood on the arena platform. Yesterday, he held Mo Qingqing's hand, announcing to the world their relationship. Was he, Qin Wenyin, not worthy? Stepping out, Qin Wenyin walked down the platform. At this moment, the top 6 rankings had already been decided. The top 6 rankers were Chen Wang, Sherpadian, Si Qiong, Zhan Chen, the black-robed figure, and Qin Wenyin. Old Man Tianji allowed the spectators to rest for a period of time before he announced, Qin Zheng, battle against Emperor Azure. This battle would determine the 7th and 8th rankers of the Heavenly Fate rankings. Emperor Azure wouldn't allow himself to be defeated. On the arena platform, he frenziedly fought against Qin Zheng, causing the spectators to involuntarily sigh in admiration. Both of them were extremely powerful and were proficient in many different methods. In the end, Emperor Azure was defeated once again. Ever since the top 11 rankers were decided, Emperor Azure had lost 3 times in a row. The first was to the black-robed figure, the second was to Qin Wenyin, and the third was to Qin Zheng. He, Emperor Azure, hadn't even won a single battle. Even someone as powerful as Emperor Azure was defeated in 3 consecutive battles. Such an ending caused the spectators to sigh in their hearts. This was the Heavenly Fate rankings this time around. The previous ranker, Emperor Azure, ranked number 5, had lost all 3 battles. At this moment, Emperor Azure was extremely dispirited. He had no way to accept such a tragic ending. However, reality was cruel. The Heavenly Fate rankings floated in front of Old Man Tianji. Qin Zheng's name was engraved on the 7th position, while Emperor Azure's name was engraved on the 8th position. Only the top 6 rankers had yet to be determined. The remaining 6 were also the strongest among them. Boo! Great waves of shock rocked the hearts of the spectators. They didn't dare to believe how terrifying the upcoming battles would be. Chen Wang, who would he face in the first battle? Si Qiong, how strong would his soul assimilation art be? Other than Mu Feng, was there anyone else who could injure him? Chen Wang, Sherpadian, Si Qiong, Zhan Chen. Who was stronger? Had the black-robed figure reached his limit? Would he be able to advance any further? Qin Wenyan was a dark horse. Would he be the weakest among the remaining 6? Or could he continue to create miracles and step into the top 5? Or even the top 3? Questions and questions filled the hearts of the spectators. They couldn't wait to see the final battles of the Heavenly Fate rankings. Next, each and every one of you will have to fight multiple rounds of battles. The order of the battles will be determined by me. As long as your strength is sufficient, you will all have multiple chances to fight. You won't be eliminated after a single round. Old Man Tianji stared at the crowd as he slowly explained. Many of the spectators knew of the rules of the Heavenly Fate rankings. When it came to the last 6 people, they knew that the following battles would be very serious. They would carry out many battles to determine the final rankings. For the first round, Chen Wang against Zhang Qin, Si Qiong against the black-robed figure, Sherpadian against Qin Wenyan. As the sound of Old Man Tianji's voice faded, the spectators all nodded their heads in agreement. From their perspective, Chen Wang, Si Qiong and Sherpadian might be stronger than Zhang Qin, Qin Wenyan and the black-robed figure. Hence, there was no need for the two of them to clash earlier than expected. However, it was unavoidable for the remaining 6 rankers to clash against each other. Regardless of which two of them clashed against each other, it would still be considered a battle between the strong. Chen Wang against Zhang Qin. For this battle, Chen Wang had a higher chance of winning. Although Zhang Qin was also very powerful, Chen Wang had the highest chance of obtaining the first rank. Si Qiong against the black-robed man. Si Qiong should be the victor. Si Qiong's combat prowess was strange and powerful, and he even had a soul-devouring art. It was simply too terrifying. Although the black-robed man's devil arts were tyrannical, he was still lacking in maturity. In terms of mastery over the ultimate arts of Grand Xia, the black-robed figure's mastery over the chaotic art of the art of the art of the art of the chaotic art of the art of the art of the art of the Heavenly Fate rankings could be said to be one of the stronger contenders. His mastery of the Great Solar Universe art was comparable to Chen Wang's mastery of the Great Solar Universe art. Yet, it was still far from enough. Si Qiong seemed to be proficient in many of the ultimate arts of Grand Xia. As for the battle between Sherpadian and Qin Wenyan, the majority of the spectators still felt that Sherpatian's chances of victory were higher. After all, Sherpadian was still the #1 contender. Before this, the spectators had always thought that he would fight against Chen Wang. But with the appearance of Si Qiong and Zhang Qin, the situation had changed. However, with Sherpatian's strength, he should be able to defeat Qin Wenyan, although it would not be easy. Chapter 382. Chen Wang against Zhang Qin. Si Qiong against the black-robed figure. Sherpadian against Qin Wenyan. 3 battles, each one filled the hearts of the spectators with boundless anticipation. When Chen Wang and Zhang Qin stood on the arena platform, countless gazes landed on them. Chen Wang had transformed into the mysterious and terrifying Zhang Qin. How terrifying would the two of them be when they clashed? Chen Wang and Zhang Qin stared at each other. The vermilion bird let out a long cry as its aura erupted forth. A terrifying battle intent surged forth from both of them, as though it was about to roar. Chen Wang's entire body was bathed in flames. His bones and blood seemed to have transformed into lava. He resembled a flaming giant, his eyes gleaming with the light of the great sun. Behind him, a great sun dharma body could be seen. Just a single glance at him was enough to strike fear into the hearts of the spectators. The temperature around him was so terrifying that no one dared to approach him. Zhang Qin's body was enveloped in a layer of golden light. The golden light shone resplendently under the rays of the sun, as though he possessed an indestructible golden body, clashing head-on with Chen Wang's flaming body. No matter how strong you are now, you will lose for sure. Chen Wang stared at Zhang Qin as he calmly stated, "No one can obstruct my path." Zhang Qin's eyes flickered with a terrifying golden light, as though his gaze could kill. In his hands, a golden sword appeared, the sword of punishment. The two of them stepped out, walking towards each other as a towering might gushed forth from Chen Wang's body. On the Vermilion Bird Arena platform, the The two vermilion bird silhouettes in the air were also engaged in a fierce battle, screeching madly as they clashed against each other. Chi! A beam of sword light slashed through the air. Zhan Chen was the first to make his move. The sword of punishment contained the might of heavenly punishment, capable of cleaving apart everything. His mandate of swords erupted forth. His sword contained the might of punishment, able to end the life and death of his opponent with a single strike. Bang! Chen Wang stepped out, his silhouette directly vanished as astral light erupted forth. This was the ultimate art of Grand Xia, stellar transposition. Stellar transposition was the easiest absolute art to master. It could be mastered in a short period of time, but the more proficient one was in practicing it, the more powerful it would be. All 9 ultimate arts were like this. For example, Chen Wang's Great Solar Universe art, as well as the black-robed figure's chaotic art of the Heavenly Devil. The longer they cultivated it, the more proficient they would be. As for others who had only cultivated it for a short period of time, although they also possessed powerful techniques, the power they could unleash was limited. This was also the reason why Emperor Azure was defeated by the black-robed figure. Emperor Azure seemed to be proficient in all kinds of secret arts, yet he was still defeated by the black-robed figure who only used a single secret art. How could this be? That was because the black-robed man only cultivated the chaotic heavenly devil art. He infused all of his energy into the chaotic heavenly devil art. His chaotic heavenly devil art was tyrannical to the extreme. When the 5th saber of the 9 slaughters of purgatory slashed out, even the heavens and earth turned dark. Naturally, Emperor Azure didn't cultivate many ultimate arts of Grand Xia. He only cultivated a single one, the Formless Heart Sutra. The Formless Heart Sutra was obtained by one of the 7 great lineages of Grand Xia, the Hua clan. A few years ago, Hua Taishu relied on the Formless Heart Sutra to dominate the heavenly fate rankings. The Formless Heart Sutra was invisible and formless, yet it was capable of simulating innate techniques. Emperor Azure's Formless Heart Sutra couldn't even be compared to Hua Taishu's. After all, he had only cultivated it for a few days. The 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia were Great Solar Universe Art, Chaotic Heavenly Devil Art, Heavenly Swordplay, Golden Dragon Battle Art, Stellar Transposition, Formless Heart Sutra, Seal of Life and Death, Blood Curse Imprint and Thunder God Slash. Not everyone could cultivate the 9 ultimate arts. For example, the Great Solar Universe art was best suited for fire-type cultivators. As for the Chaotic Heavenly Devil art, it was exceedingly difficult to cultivate and was also exceedingly dangerous. Hence, there were only a few people who could cultivate it. Although it was the most tyrannical and all-round cultivation art, its single-target attacks weren't as tyrannical as the Thunder God Slash. The Stellar Transposition was the easiest to cultivate. As for the Seal of Life and Death and Blood Curse Imprint, only those with unique talent would be able to successfully cultivate them. The more difficult an ultimate art was, the more effort and price one had to pay, and the more talent one had to pay. But if one could successfully cultivate it, the benefits one could obtain would also be the greatest. Chen Wang chose the Stellar Transposition because he felt that his attacks were already sufficiently powerful. The other ultimate arts might not be suitable for him. The Stellar Transposition allowed him to unleash instantaneous attacks, as well as the ability to evade. In the blink of an eye, Chen Wang appeared before Zhan Chen as a terrifying great solar palm imprint blasted onto Zhan Chen's golden body. The flames of the great solar flame instantly melted Zhan Chen's golden body into a liquid state. The golden liquid started to flow, yet Zhan Chen didn't seem to notice it at all. His eyes were fixated on Chen Wang, wanting to decide the victor of this battle in an instant. Chen Wang was underestimating him, Zhan Chen. A malevolent smile flickered in Chen Wang's eyes as the sound of splashing rang out. That golden body of Zhan Chen had actually been completely melted into a liquid state. At this moment, a silhouette directly flew out, slashing out with a sword as fast as lightning. Chen Wang lifted his arm and made a grabbing motion in the air. The sound of collision rang out. It felt as though his arm was about to be severed. However, his arm had already turned into lava, and he didn't fear pain at all. Chen Wang stared at the sky as a gigantic palm imprint manifested, directly grabbing onto Zhan Chen's body. Bzz. Another silhouette flew out. Zhan Chen once again transformed into his original form, instantly appearing behind Chen Wang as he slashed out with his sword. As this sword descended, it borrowed the radiance of the heavens and earth, as well as the radiance of the sun and moon. The heavenly sword, heavenly sword, heavenly sword, heavenly sword, heavenly sword, heavenly sword. Peng! A powerful astral light erupted forth. Chen Wang also sensed the danger of this attack. His silhouette vanished from sight, appearing on the other side of the arena platform. Turning his head, Chen Wang stared at Zhan Chen with a puzzled expression. Zhan Chen had an indestructible golden body? Why was it that every time Zhan Chen struck him, he would be able to escape like a cicada shedding its carapace? I really want to see how long you can endure. Chen Wang soared in the air as he released his astral souls. A great solar astral body appeared behind him, exuding an incomparable majesty. His silhouette instantly appeared in front of Zhan Chen as he frenziedly punched out with his great solar fist. The terrifying might of the great solar universe art engulfed everything in its path, while Zhan Chen's sword danced in the air. The two of them clashed violently in the air, causing explosive sounds to echo out unceasingly. The two of them seemed to be indestructible. Zhan Chen was struck at least 10 times, while Chen Wang was slashed 5 times, yet he didn't even frown in the slightest. Too violent. Such a battle caused the hearts of the spectators to tighten. Who would have thought that Zhan Chen would be able to fight against Chen Wang to such an extent? Even if he was defeated, he would still be one of the top 3 contenders. Let's see how long you can last. A voice filled with arrogance rang out as Zhan Chen's golden body shattered once again. The spectators stared at the silhouette of Chen Wang as they sighed. Chen Wang's foundation was indeed deeper than Zhan Chen's. Although Zhan Chen was also very strong, he was still somewhat inferior. Finally, Zhan Chen was suppressed by Chen Wang and was blasted off the arena platform. Drawing in a deep breath, he landed on the ground as his countenance paled. In the end, Chen Wang was still the victor. Chen Wang's strength was evidently higher than Zhan Chen's, but Zhan Chen's abilities were too monstrous. It was as though he was invincible, which was why the battle lasted for so long. If it wasn't Chen Wang, who else would be able to defeat Zhan Chen? The second battle, Si Qiong against the black-robed figure. This was also a battle that caused the spectators to be filled with anticipation. Si Qiong was actually proficient in soul attacks. Other than Mu Feng, who else would be able to injure Si Qiong so severely? Most probably, only Mu Feng's poison would be able to do so. Rumble, the moment the black-robed figure stepped onto the arena platform, he had already unleashed his devil might. He knew how tyrannical Si Qiong's strength was, and how terrifying his soul attacks were. Si Qiong's figure was slender as he stood there, exuding an aura of sharpness. Just by standing there, he gave off a sense of immense self-confidence. The chaotic art of the heavenly devil, the 5th saber of the 9 slashes purgatory isn't enough. Si Qiong calmly stated. He had studied the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia, and if one could cultivate the chaotic art of the heavenly devil to its peak, it would definitely be extremely terrifying. However, the cultivation base of the black-robed figure was only at the Yuanfu realm, and was far from being able to unleash the full might of the chaotic art of the heavenly devil. The 9th saber of the 9 slashes purgatory gathered the might of the previous 8 saber strikes, causing a demonic dragon to descend from the heavens, capable of shattering the heavens and rending the earth. Rumble, the devil might was still as strong as ever. Up in the air, the skies darkened as demonic clouds howled, as though a terrifying demonic dragon was roaring in the skies. A devil saber appeared in the hands of the black-robed figure as the demonic dragon fused into the saber light. The black-robed figure advanced forward. For experts who were proficient in soul attacks, they naturally couldn't afford to drag the battle out. If not, their souls would be severely injured, and the consequences would be dire. Si Qiong's lips moved as sound waves gushed forth from his mouth. This was none other than the soul-suppressing melody. The silhouette of the black-robed figure flickered as he slashed out with his first saber strike. The terrifying saber light caused the sound waves to dissipate. His movements didn't pause as he slashed out with his second saber strike. This saber strike was already aimed at Si Qiong's face. Bang! Astral light exploded forth as Si Qiong's silhouette vanished from sight, reappearing directly above the head of the black-robed figure. His stellar transposition seemed to be even faster and more proficient than before. Qi! Si Qiong pointed out with his finger as a terrifying black-colored qi current pierced through the air, landing on the body of the black-robed figure. However, at the same time, the black-robed figure slashed out with his third saber strike. Bang! Astral light exploded forth once more as Si Qiong vanished once again. This time around, he appeared behind the black-robed figure, his lips still moving as he slashed out with his finger once more. The black-robed figure let out a howl of agony, as though he was in extreme agony. His devilish saber spun in reverse as it slashed out horizontally. However, Si Qiong vanished once again. This was the third time he executed stellar transposition, and he executed it consecutively. This caused the spectators to involuntarily sigh in admiration. Si Qiong's stellar transposition was simply too terrifying, and the consumption of astral energy in his body was extremely high. It was just that the speed at which he executed stellar transposition was extremely fast, allowing him to reduce the consumption of astral energy. Hence, for this strike, Si Qiong's 5 fingers struck out, pointing straight at the head of the black-robed figure. Abruptly, the silhouette of the black-robed figure vanished. Vanished. The black-robed figure vanished without a trace, as though he had never appeared before. At the place where he stood, only a long black robe was left behind. Emichim? Si Qiong furrowed his brows. After which, a hand abruptly stretched out, grabbing hold of his hand. A terrifying wave of underworld energy caused his entire body to feel a bone-piercing chill. Bzz! A saber slashed out, as Si Qiong's other hand abruptly slashed out. Fresh blood splattered in the air, but the finger that was grabbed by the black-robed figure was still pointing downwards. Finally, the black-robed figure released his grip. Si Qiong explosively retreated, only to see the silhouette of the black-robed figure vanishing from the arena platform as he sat cross-legged on the ground. His soul was injured. The hearts of the spectators involuntarily trembled. The damage to one's soul was extremely terrifying, and the black-robed figure was clearly injured. He had lost to Si Qiong. Si Qiong was too terrifying. There was a high possibility that he would be contending against Chen Wang for the top ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings. Chapter 383. Si Qiong's soul attacks definitely didn't lose out to the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia. Yuanfu realm cultivators had no way to sense their own souls, yet Si Qiong was able to do so. However, that earlier strike from the black-robed figure had also left a deep impression on the spectators. It was as though the black-robed figure had vanished into thin air, unleashing a sudden slash that almost caused Si Qiong to die. That earlier strike had also caused Si Qiong to break out in cold sweat. In the battle between Chen Wang and Zhan Chen, as well as the battle between Si Qiong and the black-robed figure, although Chen Wang and Si Qiong had both emerged victorious, they were still able to win by a hair's breadth. From this, one could see the disparity in strength between them. If one dared to underestimate one's opponent, they would definitely die a miserable death. Si Qiong and the black-robed figure both left the platform. The next battle was between Sherpatian and Qin Wenyan. In this battle, would the powerful Sherpatian be able to suppress Qin Wenyan? Sherpatian from the Sher clan cultivated the Golden Dragon battle art and stellar transposition. It was said that his bloodline contained a unique ability that would be extremely terrifying once used. Sherpatian was ranked number 3 in the previous Heavenly Fate rankings. Now that he was facing a dark horse, how would he fare in defeating him? The dark horse that Sherpatian was facing wasn't an ordinary dark horse. Ever since the first round, he was only at the 7th level of Yuanfu. Back then, he had already obtained first place in the Sounding the Drum Challenge Heavenly Will. At that time, he didn't attract too much attention. At the very most, the spectators only knew of him. After which, he killed Duan Qingshan. After which, he donned the platinum battle robe, striking the hearts of the spectators again and again. However, what truly caused Qin Wenyan to be taken seriously was his performance in the Vermilion Bird formation. When he was being pursued by Chen Wang was the one who suffered a disadvantage, forcing Chen Wang to hide in the cave, and when he came out, he used the most tyrannical method to slaughter Yang Fan, Hua Feng, and the others. Even the powerful Yao Lord was chased away by him with a single sentence. Qin Wenyan had a high chance of entering the top 10 of the Heavenly Fate rankings. After that, he held Emo Qingqing's hand on the Heavenly Fate ranking battle platform, telling the world about the relationship between him and Emo Qingqing. And after that, within 10 breaths of time, he defeated Emperor Azure. Time and time again, he had caused the crowd to sigh in admiration. Now, he was fighting for the top 3 positions, and his opponent was Sherpadian. Without a doubt, this would be the strongest challenge Qin Wenyan had ever faced since he entered the Heavenly Fate rankings. Back then in the Vermilion Bird formation, he could still escape from Chen Wang. But on the arena platform, he could only fight. Sherpadian and Qin Wenyan stood on the platform, facing each other. Qin Wenyan, this dark horse, had he reached the end of his path? A golden dragon-shaped battle armor covered Sherpadian's body. The ancient demon blood in his body seemed to be boiling. Sherpadian was like a dragon-shaped ancient demon, wielding a golden spear as he stepped forward. One of the 9 great arts of Grand Xia, the Golden Dragon Battle Art. Sherpadian had always been cultivating this art, and his combat strength was incomparably strong. When he walked towards Qin Wenyan, the spectators felt as though Qin Wenyan was facing a primordial demon. Qin Wenyan's body was clad in demonic armor. Demonic qi gushed forth from him as the blood in his body churned wildly. His palms were filled with boundless strength. Behind him, a pair of demonic wings appeared, flapping gently as a demonic wind ravaged the arena platform. Boom! Sherpadian stepped out as his silhouette vanished from sight. Stellar transposition. The instant he reappeared, he appeared right in front of Qin Wenyan. The golden dragon's spear stabbed out explosively, akin to a golden dragon brandishing its claws, wanting to penetrate Qin Wenyan's head. This strike was as fast as lightning. There was no way for Qin Wenyan to react. However, a demonic light flickered in the center of Qin Wenyan's brows. His third eye shone with a resplendent light, and at the instant the spear pierced out, he had already locked onto Sherpadian's silhouette. It was impossible for Yuanfu cultivators to achieve true teleportation. The stellar transposition had such a powerful effect because it was able to ignite the astral light in an instant, allowing the user to burst forth with terrifying speed, giving off the impression of teleportation. But if a supreme expert were to spectate such a battle, they would be able to clearly see the trajectory of the stellar transposition. Naturally, the stellar transposition would also increase in power according to the user's strength. Qin Wenyan was also able to see the trajectory of stellar transposition. The instant his third eye opened, not even the slightest fluctuation in space could hide from him. This was also the reason why when he was fighting against Emperor Azure, he was able to accurately turn his body around and attack Emperor Azure. Bzz. A raging wind gusted as his wings flapped. Qin Wenyan's silhouette instantly. Sherpadian took another step forward as his silhouette vanished once more. This time around, his silhouette directly appeared at the side of Qin Wenyan. His golden spear was even faster, even more ferocious. With a single stab, the sound of a sonic boom rang out as the spear pierced into Qin Wenyan's silhouette, causing it to explode. However, there was no blood. How is this possible? The spectators only saw the afterimages of Qin Wenyan appearing on the arena platform. Qin Wenyan was still floating there, unscathed. The wings on his back were still flapping as he stared at Sherpadian. He's able to sense stellar transposition, just like when he fought against Emperor Azure. How powerful! The spectators could finally confirm that Qin Wenyan's perception was extremely terrifying. He was able to sense the trajectory of stellar transposition, allowing him to evade in advance. Shirpadian naturally understood this as well. He didn't continue using stellar transposition, stepping out step by step as a terrifying aura gushed forth from him. The demonic chi from Qin Wendian towered up into the skies. His arms transformed into the arms of a Qilin, thick and powerful. His sharp claws shone with a terrifying light. Peng! Shirpotian's golden spear struck out once more. This time around he directly attacked Qin Wendian. The golden light from the spear penetrated through everything. It only needed an instant to pierce through Qin Wendian's head. On the tip of the spear, a demonic dragon could be seen baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Strength, I wonder how strong Shirpotian's strength is. Shirpadian was proficient in strength attacks, and was incomparably tyrannical. However, Qin Wendian directly blasted out with his arms. The incomparably ferocious Qilin claws collided with the demonic dragon shadow, causing terrifying sounds of collision to echo out. Sizzling sounds rang out as Qin Wendian was forced backwards. His mandate of force was already at the second level, and so was his mandate of demon. But in terms of strength, he still couldn't compare to Shirpadian. The mandates Qin Wendian had comprehended were the mandate of demons, the mandate of metal, and the mandate of great earth. All of them contained a terrifying amplification effect, and all of them were at the second level. In fact, some of them had even reached the advanced boundary while Qin Wendian was still stuck at the initial boundary. Just based on pure strength alone, Shirpadian was even stronger than Qin Wang. And it was precisely because of his strength that Shirpadian was considered the strongest contender for the heavenly fate rankings. Qin Wendian's arms trembled slightly. This time around, he could sense many different types of mandates colliding against him. His arms were pierced through by the fiend transformation art, as well as a feeling that his bones were about to shatter. If it wasn't for the fact that his fiend transformation art had already reached the third level, he would definitely have been injured by this attack. In terms of strength, Shirpadian was extremely terrifying. But Qin Wendian discovered that Shirpadian had a weakness, his speed. The reason why Shirpadian chose to use stellar transposition was because he knew that he was lacking in terms of speed. But of course, whether or not his speed was slow depended on who he was fighting against. If he was fighting against ordinary cultivators at the peak of Yuanfu, his speed definitely wouldn't be any slower. Bzz. A raging wind billowed as a pair of gigantic demonic wings fluttered in the wind. It was as though those wings were a part of Qin Wendian's body. Demonic qi gushed forth, and gradually, a demonic silhouette appeared. Qin Wendian's body was enveloped by a screen of demonic light, resembling a true golden-winged rock. That terrifying demonic light circulated around his body, transforming into the most perfect outline of a great rock. There was a limit to the speed of a human, but if one transformed into a rock, how terrifying would their speed be? And this golden-winged rock, did it have the innate abilities of a human? This was the tyrannical aspect of the fiend transformation art. Qin Wendian was able to perfectly combine the advantages of both humans and demons. The third level of the fiend transformation art, fiend transformation. Qin Wendian transformed into a demonic rock. What a powerful innate technique. The hearts of the spectators trembled. Qin Wendian actually transformed into a demonic rock. The eyes of the defeated Emperor Azure gleamed with sharpness. Qin Wendian's fiend transformation art had actually reached the demonic transformation realm. As a descendant of the D clan, he had suffered crushing defeats in every aspect. A raging wind gusted by. On the arena platform, Qin Wendian's silhouette vanished, instantly reappearing in front of Shirpadian. The bell chimes rang out. The great rock actually blasted out an ancient bell, aiming for Shirpotian's heart. At the same time, a terrifying claw flashed past, slashing towards Shirpadian. Shirpotian's countenance turned grim. His long spear slammed out explosively. Although his movement technique was slow, his attack speed was still extremely fast. However, he still didn't manage to touch Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian's figure flickered as another bell chime rang out, piercing his heart. The bell chimes continued unceasingly as the sharp claws slashed towards Shirpotian's back. Shirpadian gave up on the golden dragon spear. Turning back, he blasted out a terrifying ancient heavenly dragon imprint. Instantly, the roar of a dragon resounded through the air, but at the instant he touched Qin Wenyin, the great rock was already nothing but an afterimage. Fast, too fast. Qin Wenyin was using his speed to break through Shi Potion's advantage in strength. In that short instant, the two of them clashed countless times. On the arena platform, countless silhouettes appeared around Shi Potion. All of them were the silhouettes of the great rock, as well as the sharp claws of the heavenly dragon imprint. Shi Potion had terrifying strength, yet he had nowhere to unleash it. Even under the effect of gravity, he had no way to slow down Qin Wenyan's speed. Qin Wenyan's mandate of force was also very strong. It was able to contend against his mandate of gravity. The spectators were completely speechless when they saw this scene. Shi Potion had no way to unleash his full strength. Shi Potion was infuriated. His heart pounded madly. If this continued, his heart would be destroyed, and he would die without a doubt. Shi Potion was infuriated. His heart pounded madly. If this continued, his heart would be destroyed, and he would die without a doubt. With a thunderous roar, Shi Potion's bloodlines surged to the heavens. The spectators only saw the silhouette of a gigantic primordial demonic beast appearing within Shi Potion's body. Shi Potion's entire body grew taller and taller as he let out a roar of rage. The sound waves from his roar seemed capable of shattering flesh and blood. Shi Potion has completely unleashed the power of his bloodline. The hearts of the spectators trembled. As expected, these people still had trump cards hidden up their sleeves. Shi Potion's gigantic palms directly grabbed towards the air, ignoring the incoming attacks, wanting to tear Qin Wenyin apart. However, Qin Wenyan's silhouette instantly vanished, and a palm strike landed on his back, yet Shi Potion completely ignored it. The body of an ancient demonic beast was as sturdy as a mountain, indestructible. Too late. The voice of a human rang out from the great rock's mouth. Shi Potion was still frenziedly attacking, while Qin Wenyin, who was in the form of a great rock, quietly stood behind him. This bizarre scene once again caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. Is Shi Potion trapped in an illusion? Is this the reason why when Qin Wenyin was fighting against Emperor Azure's saber slashed at the wrong spot? Shi Potion frenziedly unleashed attacks towards the afterimages in the air. Qin Wenyin, who was standing behind him, could sense how terrifying Shi Potion's aura was. His heart shuddered, but everything had already ended. The light around him manifested the silhouettes of numerous great rocks. In an instant, the silhouettes of the great rock formed an incomparably gigantic silhouette, completely enveloping Qin Wenyin within. Is that a divine inscription of combat? Chapter 384. Qin Wenyin had truly brought too much astonishment to the spectators. Initially, they had thought that with Shi Potion's terrifying strength, although he wouldn't be able to suppress Qin Wenyin, it wouldn't be a problem for him to win. However, at this moment, their confidence started to waver. Shi Potion had actually fallen into an illusory realm. Was that really an illusory realm? No, that's definitely not an illusory realm. Emperor Azure had experienced Qin Wenyan's strength before. Not only that, he himself was proficient in illusory realms, yet that strike of his had landed on the wrong spot. It wasn't an illusory realm at all, it was as though everything had happened in reality. Given Emperor Azure's control over illusions, it was impossible for him to fall into an illusory realm. Not only that, powerful wills would be able to extricate themselves from it. For someone as terrifying as Shi Potion, it was impossible for him to fall into an illusory realm. At that time, Emperor Azure felt as though everything that happened was real, deeply imprinted into his consciousness. But in the end, it was proven to be fake, just like Shi Potion. Emperor Azure knew that this was a type of mandate that was similar to the mandate of illusions. And that terrifying great rock, was that a combat divine inscription? A fourth-ranked combat divine inscription? The terrifying great rock accompanied Qin Wenyin as they dashed forwards. Like a beam of light, exuding a terrifying might that could destroy everything. The purgatory vermilion bird hovering above Qin Wentian's vermilion bird held an absolute advantage against Shi Potion's vermilion bird. As Qin Wentian grew stronger, his vermilion bird also grew more and more violent and terrifying. Shi Potion finally realized something. Everything he saw was fake. It wasn't an illusory realm technique, it was an illusion created by him. An illusory realm technique allowed him to see things that were illusory and not real. However, what Shi Potion saw earlier wasn't an illusion, it was an illusion created by him. Boom! The terrifying great rock slammed into Shi Potion, instantly sending him flying through the air. His armor shattered as fresh blood flowed through the air, and he slammed heavily onto the ground. On the platform, the purgatory vermilion bird had also swallowed Shi Potion's vermilion bird, ending the battle at the same time. Qin Wentian, who had transformed into the rock, stood up slowly and transformed into a human again. His breath was slightly fluctuating, his long robe and black hair were flying in the air. Staring at the silhouette of Qin Wentian, everyone understood that this dark horse was preparing to descend to the next round. Qin Wentian had defeated Shi Potion, the one who had the highest chance of contending for the top position in the heavenly fate rankings. Although Qin Wentian had seized Shi Potion's weakness and attacked crazily, making Shi Potion unable to play his advantage, he still won. Qin Wentian's comprehensive strength was too terrifying. He seemed to have no weaknesses. In terms of strength, he could crush too many people. Those who were stronger than him couldn't compare to him in speed. Moreover, he could transform into a demon and had a terrifying ability comparable to the will of illusion. The ancient bell he shot out seemed to be able to destroy hearts. During battle, he could condense battle divine inscriptions in the air, and they were extremely terrifying battle divine inscriptions. All 3 battles had ended. Chen Wang defeated Zhang Chen. Si Qiong had defeated the black-robed figure. Qin Wentian had defeated Shi Potion. The final battle was undoubtedly the most shocking. It wasn't the process, but rather, the ending. Next, Chen Wang will battle Shi Potion, Si Qiong will battle Zhang Chen, and Qin Wentian will battle the black-robed figure. Old Man Tianji's voice rang out. The 3 victors would fight against the 3 losers. This way, they could avoid a clash of the strongest, and at the same time, the rankings wouldn't be determined by a single battle. That would be unfair. For example, although Shi Potion had lost to Qin Wentian, what if he was stronger than Si Qiong? If he was ranked 3rd, it would naturally be unfair to him. Therefore, there would be such a mismatch. This kind of battle would make the final ranking more convincing. Naturally, before the battles began, the participants had to be given sufficient time to recover from their earlier exhaustion and injuries. Only when Chen Wang and Shi Potion stood on the platform did the gazes of the countless spectators once again converge on the platform. This time around, Shi Potion didn't even have the vermilion bird spirit, but the spectators were still filled with anticipation for this battle. However, because of Shi Potion's defeat, the spectators' view of him had already changed. Everyone believed that Chen Wang would defeat Shi Potion, and no one was optimistic about Shi Potion's chances. The winner is the king, and the loser is the villain. If Shi Potion defeated Chen Wang, didn't that mean that Qin Wentian would be able to defeat Chen Wang as well? This battle was extremely important to Shi Potion. He couldn't afford to lose again, but the person he was facing now was Chen Wang. At the first instant, Shi Potion unleashed the innate technique from his bloodline. His body expanded in size, resembling an ancient demonic beast unexcelled in the world. His strength, defense, and attack had all increased to an unfathomable level. Chen Wang was also extremely serious. His astral soul erupted forth as the great Sun Dharma body manifested. The battle between the 2 of them used the most direct method, colliding head-on. On the arena platform, the flaming giant and the ancient demonic beast were engaged in a frenzied battle. Every time they collided, the spectators could feel their blood boiling. Chen Wang's flaming body was on the verge of breaking apart, while Shi Potion's body was engulfed in flames, as though he was about to transform into a flaming giant. Shi Potion, you can't do it. Abruptly, a voice rang out from the arena platform. after which, the spectators only saw the great sun dharma body above Chen Wang's head radiating a resplendent light, as though his astral soul had fused together with it. A gigantic palm imprint that seemed capable of annihilating the heavens and earth slammed down toward Sherpadian. Sherpadian roared. He didn't use stellar transposition to evade. In this battle, Chen Wang wanted to use the most direct method to settle everything. How could he retreat? Bang! As the palm strike landed, Sherpatian's body transformed into a body of lava. His bones and blood seemed to be on the verge of melting into flames, being assimilated by Chen Wang. A look of struggle appeared on Sherpatian's face. Get down! Chen Wang waved his palms, sending Sherpadian flying off the arena platform. For this battle, Chen Wang was the victor. Sherpadian was defeated once again. If Qin Wenyan defeated the black-robed figure, that would mean that he, Sherpadian, would still have one last chance to fight against Si Qiong. If he defeated Si Qiong, it would mean that he was stronger than Si Qiong, and would naturally be stronger than Zhang Chen and the black-robed figure. But if Qin Wenyan was defeated by the black-robed figure, he would no longer have the qualifications to fight against Si Qiong. Because the black-robed figure had been defeated by Si Qiong before. If he defeated Qin Wenyan, it would mean that he would be able to defeat Sherpadian as well, and there would be no need for him to continue fighting. But no matter how one looked at it, Sherpatian's chances of becoming one of the top 3 were practically zero. And as expected, in the following battle, Si Qiong also defeated Zhang Chen. Even more so, no one believed that Sherpadian would be able to defeat Si Qiong. Sherpadian and Zhang Chen were both defeated twice in a row, causing the spectators to involuntarily sigh in their hearts. On the stage of the final battle, even someone as strong as Sherpadian and Zhang Chen had no choice but to accept their consecutive defeats. One couldn't help but to say that this was extremely cruel. Zhang Chen had prepared for this battle for far too long, yet he had already lost to Chen Wang and Si Qiong. He wouldn't allow himself to be defeated a third time, absolutely not. Sherpadian was even more miserable. Not only did he lose to Chen Wang, he even lost to Qin Wenyan. He was ranked number 3 in the previous Heavenly Fate rankings, but this time around, it was extremely difficult for him to be ranked number 3. Next, we'll have to see the outcome of the battle between Qin Wenyan and the black-robed figure. For this battle, there shouldn't be too much of a disparity. Qin Wenyan is very strong, but the black-robed figure was able to injure Si Qiong. He definitely isn't a simple character. The spectators were speculating in their hearts with regards to the outcome of this battle. What would the outcome of this battle be exactly? Would the tyrannical devil art of the black-robed figure be able to suppress Qin Wenyan? Qin Wenyan's attacks were also getting more and more bizarre. Would his illusory techniques be effective against the black-robed figure? When the two of them stood on the arena platform, the previously calm hearts of the spectators were once again stirred. Both of them could be considered dark horses of the Heavenly Fate rankings this time around. Qin Wenyan didn't belong to any major powers, and the black-robed figure didn't even know of his identity. Now that they were facing each other, they were about to clash head-on. Who are you? Qin Wenyan stared at the black-robed figure. Contrary to the expectations of the spectators, Qin Wenyan didn't immediately make a move. Instead, he questioned the identity of the black-robed figure. The black-robed figure had helped him twice before, and with regards to the identity of the black-robed figure, Qin Wenyan had always been filled with curiosity. But he had also injured Mo Qingqing on the arena platform. Initially, Qin Wenyan was filled with both curiosity and gratitude towards the black-robed figure. But after his battle with Mo Qingqing, Qin Wenyan started to doubt himself. He had to know the identity of the black-robed figure. The black-robed figure coldly stared at him, not saying a word. If you don't speak, I will personally unveil your veil. Qin Wenyan's voice was ice-cold, as the aura from his body erupted forth. Kill me or injure me heavily. You might be able to see who I am. And if you lose, I won't show you any mercy. The voice of the black-robed figure was hoarse. In the minds of the spectators, he had never spoken before. But at this moment he actually spoke. Demonic chi gushed forth from the black-robed figure, as terrifying devil clouds appeared in the air. A series of whistling sounds could be heard as the demonic qi gushed towards Qin Wenyin. As you wish. Qin Wenyin walked towards the black-robed figure, his aura towering up to the heavens. The blood in his body churned, as demonic qi gathered in his palms. A pair of wings appeared on his back. Facing the black-robed figure, Qin Wenyin naturally wouldn't underestimate him. With a flap of his wings, Qin Wentian's silhouette vanished, instantly appearing before his opponent. His opponent's devil palm slammed over. Qin Wenyin wasn't polite at all. With a lift of his hand, a tyrannical dragon imprint blasted out. The might of their attacks was incomparably terrifying. In an instant, the two of them collided. Qin Wenyin swept his eyes over, as a terrifying will of mandates gushed into the mind of the black-robed figure. But at this moment, the devilish might of the black-robed figure suddenly vanished without a trace. Not only that, the palm imprint of the black-robed figure directly landed on Qin Wentian's chest. Qin Wentian's countenance drastically changed. Draconic roars echoed in the air as the terrifying dragon imprint slammed down. To Qin Wentian's shock, the black-robed figure actually opened up his chest, allowing the draconic roars to land on him. Boom! The terrifying attack slammed into the chest of the black-robed figure without any reservations. His black robes were instantly torn apart as his body was flung through the air like a kite with a broken string, slamming into the golden feather pillar of the Vermilion Bird Arena platform. After which, he slumped onto the ground as fresh blood flowed unceasingly from his mouth. This scene caused the spectators to be dumbfounded. At the last instant, the black-robed figure actually gave up on attacking? How could this be? What was going on exactly? Even Qin Wentian had a puzzled look on his face. He didn't understand why the black-robed figure would do this. After a moment of shock, Qin Wentian lifted his feet and walked towards the black-robed figure. The black-robed figure's black robes were already torn apart, but the veil was still there. In fact, he could even see a head full of silky black hair, as well as a pair of extremely beautiful eyes. Faintly, they seemed somewhat familiar. "Who are you?" Qin Wentian's heart tightened. He squatted down and placed his hand on the veil of the black-robed figure, removing it. What was exposed was a pair of extremely delicate and beautiful faces. She was very young and very beautiful. Many in the crowd stared at the face of the black-robed figure, and those who could see it clearly felt their hearts trembling in shock. How could this be possible? The black-robed figure who cultivated that tyrannical devil art was actually such a beautiful lady? Not only that, although blood flowed unceasingly from the corners of her mouth, her beautiful eyes flickered with a smile that contained traces of tears. Qin Wenyin finally recognized this beautiful face. Although it had changed greatly, he still recognized it. His heart violently pounded, as he felt a twinge of pain in his heart. Why did you do this?" Qin Wenyin let out a low roar, as his palms gently brushed past the beautiful face, wiping away the blood from the corners of her mouth. "Atone for the sins of father and sister, and say sorry on their behalf." A gentle voice sounded out from the mouth of the lady. In her eyes, a smile could still be seen, a smile that was extremely beautiful. The corners of her lips trembled slightly as she stared at Qin Wenyin. Smiling, she called out, "Wenyin Gij." Chapter 385. Wenyin Gij. A melodious and gentle voice rang out in Qin Wentian's ears, permeating the air, causing time to stop. Countless bewildered faces stared at the arena platform. The fact that the user of the tyrannical devil art was actually a female had already caused them to be astonished. Not only that, this female was also extremely young and beautiful. What was even more shocking was that she was actually acquainted with Qin Wentian, and even intimately referred to Qin Wentian as Wenyin Gij. The tears at the corner of the female's eyes, the smile on her beautiful face, as well as the traces of blood at the corner of her mouth, all of this brought about a sense of poignant beauty. The crowd didn't understand, since the black-robed figure was so close to Qin Wentian, why would she still do such a thing? In the midst of the crowd, Bai Qingsong clenched his fists tightly, while autumn snow bit her lips as they stared in the direction of the arena platform. They hated themselves, but now, they still needed Bai Qing to atone for their sins. They had told Bai Qing about the past, that Qin Wendian didn't kill Bai Qingsong for the sake of Bai Qing. Maybe because of this, Bai Qing still felt guilty in her heart and chose such a method. But in reality, there was no need for her to do so. Silly lass. Qin Wendian sat on the arena platform, supporting Bai Qing's body up, allowing her head to rest on his thighs. Caressing her cheeks, he continued, "Do you know that doing this would only make Wenyin Gij feel even worse? If I had been a little more ruthless earlier, wouldn't I have hated you for the rest of my life?" Never in Qin Wentian's wildest dreams would he have imagined that the black-robed figure would actually be Bai Qing, the little lass who loved to follow behind him. Now that she had grown up, she had become even more beautiful than her elder sister, Autumn Snow, one of the 4 great beauties of Sky Harmony City. Not only that, she was also so powerful. But in Qin Wentian's memories, she was still that innocent and adorable lass. Qin Wendian would never be able to forget that night when Bai Qingsong wanted to deal with him. Bai Qing had carried a dagger behind her father's back, allowing him to kidnap her. After so many years, this lass had once again done such a foolish thing. In that case, Wenyin Gij will always remember me. Bai Qing still had a radiant smile on her face, just like when she was a young girl. Her smile was as pure and radiant as ever. Although she could transform into a powerful devil when she wore the black robes, in front of her Wenyin Gij, she was still a young girl. "Don't say such things." Qin Wenyin glared at Bai Qing. After which, he turned his gaze to the crowd below the platform as he called out, "Qingqing, that's my younger sister, Qing." Mo Qingqing's silhouette flickered as she landed on the arena platform. She slowly walked to the side of Bai Qing as a few medicinal pills appeared in her hands, which she fed into Bai Qing's mouth. "Sister Qingqing, you are so beautiful." Qing'e revealed a mischievous smile. "Sister Qingqing, I have no ill intentions towards you. I just want to see how my sister-in-law is doing." "Who's your sister-in-law?" Mo Qingqing was rendered speechless by the words of this lass. But when she saw the innocent smile on Bai Qing's face, how could she bear to blame her? This silly girl, she even dared to throw her life away just now. "Then I'll call you sister. You are not allowed to be angry with me." Bai Qing smiled foolishly. Mo Qingqing nodded her head lightly. "Don't worry, why would I be angry with you? Okay, let's go down." Qin Wenyin felt extremely uncomfortable as he felt the gazes of the crowd. Supporting Bai Qing up, Bai Qing's gaze shifted to the direction of the Mystic Moon Hall. Her eyes landed on a black-robed female as she bowed. "Master, disciple can only reach this point in the heavenly fate ranking battle. I hope I didn't lose your face." Only now did the crowd notice that the black robes on Bai Qing were extremely similar to the black robes worn by those from the Mystic Moon Hall. So it turned out that she was actually someone from the Mystic Moon Hall. That female disciple nodded her head lightly as she calmly stated, "Qing, the knot in your heart has been untied. The ranking battle of the heavenly fate rankings is also sufficient to bring glory to our sect. Have a good rest." "Thank you, Master." Bai Qing nodded her head as she walked down the arena platform with Qin Wendian and Mo Qingqing. The ranking battle of the heavenly fate rankings had always been dominated by the 7 great clans of Grand Xia. The majority of the participants belonged to the 7 great clans. Bai Qing from the Mystic Moon Hall, being able to achieve such an achievement was already an extremely outstanding feat naturally. Her achievements would also bring glory to the Mystic Moon Hall. The gazes of many were still fixated on Qin Wenyin, as their curiosity towards him grew stronger and stronger. Qin Wenyin, the dark horse of the heavenly fate rankings, had already secured a spot in the top 4. He had a beautiful girlfriend like Mo Qingqing, as well as a beautiful and powerful younger sister. Not only that, it seemed that this beautiful woman wasn't even his biological sister. This caused the hearts of the spectators to be filled with different thoughts. Another round of the heavenly fate rankings had ended. Chen Wang defeated Sherpadian. Si Qiong defeated Zhan Chen. Qin Wenyan defeated the black-robed figure. Perhaps it couldn't even be considered a battle. following which the black-robed figure voluntarily withdrew from the heavenly fate rankings, no longer persisting. On the heavenly fate rankings, the name of Bai Qing from the Mystic Moon Hall appeared in the number 6 position. Next, it was time for the two losers, Shirpadian and Zhan Qin, to battle. Shirpadian was defeated by Chen Wang and Qin Wenian, while Zhan Qin was defeated by Chen Wang and Si Qiong. This meant that as long as Shirpadian defeated Zhan Qin, there would be no need for Zhan Qin to continue fighting against Qin Wenian. He would directly be ranked number 5, while Shirpadian would obtain the qualifications to challenge Si Qiong. And if Zhan Qin defeated Shirpadian, it meant that there was no need for Shirpadian to fight against Si Qiong. Shirpadian would be ranked number 5, while Zhan Qin would obtain the qualifications to challenge Qin Wenian. After Old Man Tianji made the announcement, he allowed them to rest for a period of time. As for the ending of the battle, the spectators couldn't predict it. Shirpadian and Zhan Qin had both lost 2 battles. Between the two of them, who was stronger? Both of them had lost to Chen Wang. As for Shirpotian's defeat to Qin Wenian, it was because of his speed. Zhan Qin's defeat was because Zhan Qin didn't have an advantage in other aspects, but when it came to soul attacks, even if his golden body was indestructible, his soul would still be destroyed. When Shirpadian and Zhan Qin appeared on the arena platform, an intense battle intent radiated from them. They had already lost 2 battles in a row. They absolutely couldn't afford to lose again. If they lost again, they would directly be ranked number 5 on the heavenly fate rankings, and if they won, they would still have a chance to fight for the number 3 position. For this battle, the conviction of the two of them was incomparably strong. Shirpotian's physique grew even more violent as his primordial demonic bloodline erupted forth. His body transformed into a gigantic boulder, containing a towering might. Shirpotian's offense and defense could be said to be one of the most fearsome existences on the heavenly fate rankings. Yet in his first battle, he was defeated by Qin Wentian's speed and divine inscriptions, and in his second battle he met Chen Wang. Zhan Qin's countenance turned sharp. He could feel an intense sense of threat emanating from Shirpadian. We can't afford to lose this battle. It was unknown how terrifying Zhan Qin's eyes were, but at this moment, he actually closed his eyes. His lips trembled, as though a terrifying energy was awakening within him. A wondrous sound wave permeated the air, containing an incomparably majestic energy that enveloped Zhan Qin. Zhan Qin actually has a secret art? The hearts of the spectators trembled, after which astral light cascaded downwards, landing on Zhan Qin's body. Boundless golden light flashed as Zhan Qin's body was bathed in it. The sharpness he exuded grew stronger and stronger. "Ancient will summon," Zhan Qin murmured, after which his entire body trembled violently, and at the instant he opened his eyes, a beam of golden light could be seen flickering in the center of his brows. His eyes grew even more demonic, giving the spectators a feeling that his eyes no longer belonged to a single person, but rather contained the brilliance of 2 people. It was incomparably terrifying. Borrow the boundless golden yuan, punishment. Around Zhan Qin, a fearsome golden light shimmered. Step by step, he advanced towards Shirpadian. Every single beam of golden light he exuded contained the power of punishment, unparalleled might. Peng! Shirpadian stomped his foot on the arena platform, stepping forward. The strength he exuded was also incomparably terrifying, yet at this moment he actually felt an intense sense of danger from Zhan Qin. Zhan Qin also stepped towards Shirpadian. Every step he took caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. Demonic chi and golden light enveloped the entire arena platform. The power of punishment felt as though it wanted to penetrate through Shirpotian's body. Roar! Finally, at the instant the two of them neared each other, Shirpadian unleashed his strongest attack. A gigantic golden dragon roared as the silhouette of a terrifying primordial demon manifested. This strike of his seemed capable of destroying the heavens and earth, flattening the mountains and rivers. Zhan Qin similarly unleashed his own attack. Boundless golden light converged together to form the power of punishment, blasting forth with his body, destroying everything in its path. Ping, 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 ping. The terrifying light of punishment exploded apart, but it seemed as though there was no end to it. Cracks gradually appeared on the surface of the golden dragon, and finally, Zhang Qin pierced through it with his golden Punisher sword. The golden dragon broke apart, and a deafening rumbling sound echoed out as Sher Potion's armor exploded apart. A sword pierced through his chest bit by bit. Boom! A thunderous sound rang out as Sher Potion's body was flung through the air. The sword had penetrated through his chest, causing fresh blood to flow out. The spectators watched on as Sher Potion was flung through the air, falling off the arena platform. Zhang Qin stood at the edge of the arena platform, his aura fluctuating violently. He closed his eyes as the terrifying energy he was radiating gradually retracted. Zhang Qin had won. He had used his attacks to clash with Sher Potion, and he had won. However, it seemed that even Zhang Qin wasn't able to easily control this energy. When Zhang Qin opened his eyes, he slowly turned around, gazing in the direction of Qin Wenyan. Although he had lost 2 battles, he would still be able to obtain the 3rd ranking. Staring at Zhang Qin's gaze, the spectators couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. Qin Wenyan, this dark horse, was about to come to a halt. Zhang Qin would do the same thing he did to Sher Potion, disregarding everything else to control that terrifying energy. After the conclusion of this battle, the next battle would be between Zhang Qin and Qin Wenyan, Chen Wang and Si Qiong. If Zhang Qin defeated Qin Wenyan, he would be able to obtain the 3rd ranking, while Qin Wenyan would be ranked 4th. As for Chen Wang and Si Qiong, it would be the final battle. Naturally, if Qin Wenyan was able to defeat Zhang Qin, he would be ranked within the top 3, contending against Chen Wang and Si Qiong for the top 3 rankings. However, the spectators who had just witnessed this battle all felt that Qin Wenyan wouldn't be able to win. Qin Wenyan was very strong, but Zhang Qin had defeated Sher Potion head-on. This was something only Chen Wang had accomplished before, and now, Zhang Qin had also accomplished it. Most probably, the battle between Chen Wang and Si Qiong would be the final battle. Chapter 386. There were only 2 more matches remaining in the Heavenly Fate rankings. As long as Zhang Qin defeated Qin Wenyan, the final battle would be between Chen Wang and Si Qiong. Chen Wang didn't disappoint the crowd, he managed to reach the very end. However, his opponent wasn't Sher Potion or Emperor Azure, but the strongest dark horse, Si Qiong. The strength of this dark horse was so terrifying that it was as though there was nothing he couldn't do. He was proficient in all sorts of ultimate arts of Grand Xia, and what he was most proficient in was soul attacks. There was no way to counter such attacks, there was no one who wouldn't fear him. Si Qiong seemed to have no weaknesses at all. Not only that, the spectators didn't know how magnificent the flames would be when Chen Wang and Si Qiong clashed. Chen Wang, the most anticipated opponent. Si Qiong, the most terrifying dark horse. In the air, Old Man Tianji stared at the remaining 4 contenders, his gaze lingering on each of them for a brief moment. The fate of Grand Xia was about to change, starting from the Heavenly Fate rankings. He had always believed that a demonic star would appear on the Heavenly Fate rankings. Sher Potion and Emperor Azure were both demonic cultivators. However, both of them had already been eliminated, failing to live up to the expectations of everyone. Only Qin Wenyan had slaughtered his way up until now. If it was really him, Qin Wenyan would definitely be able to influence the fate of Grand Xia in the future. Would he stop here today? For the next 2 battles, Zhang Qin vs Qin Wenyan, Chen Wang vs Si Qiong. Old Man Tianji slowly spoke. His gaze landed on Zhang Qin as he asked, "Zhang Qin, are you willing to continue? I need to rest for a while." Zhang Qin looked at Old Man Tianji as he slowly spoke. Old Man Tianji nodded, as he glanced in the direction of Qin Wenyan. After which, he spoke, "Since this is the case, let the battle between Chen Wang and Si Qiong begin first." Imichem? The spectators were all stunned when they heard Old Man Tianji's words. The battle between Chen Wang and Si Qiong would begin first? This battle might very well be the final battle of the Heavenly Fate rankings. Originally, it should have been ranked last. Why did it have to be started first? In the ranking battle of the Heavenly Fate rankings, it was usually reserved for the final battle. There were very few exceptions. Earlier, when they saw Zhang Chen's trump card, many believed that he would be able to defeat Qin Wendian, becoming the number 3 ranker of the Heavenly Fate rankings while Qin Wendian was ranked number 4. In that case, Chen Wang and Si Qiong would be the final battle. The Elder of Heavenly Secrets had actually brought forward the decisive battle. Many people didn't understand, but since the start of time, the authority to decide the Heavenly Fate rankings had always been in the hands of Old Man Tianji from the Venerate Heaven sect. The blazing rays of the sun cascaded down onto the arena platform. Chen Wang and Si Qiong walked up, basking in the sunlight as they attracted the attention of countless spectators. Today, who would become the most dazzling figure in the Heavenly Fate rankings? Was it Chen Wang or Si Qiong? Your strength isn't bad. Although I don't have much interest in the Heavenly Fate rankings, since I'm already standing here, the number 1 position naturally belongs to me. Si Qiong stared at Chen Wang as he calmly stated. It was as though the number 1 position was already in his bag. In the previous Heavenly Fate rankings, I was ranked 2nd. Today, the position of 1st shall belong to me. Even if it's you, you won't be able to block my path. Chen Wang similarly stared at Si Qiong, exuding a domineering aura. He was Chen Wang, he wanted the number 1 position in the Heavenly Fate rankings. He had been waiting for this day for a very long time. Since this is the case, let's talk with our strength. Si Qiong was extremely calm, as though nothing could cause his heart to waver. Chen Wang's body began to combust. Under the sunlight, he was bathed in flames. His blood, bones, and his entire body transformed into a body of fire. His 3rd astral soul, the strongest astral soul, was released. Above his head, a great sun venerable appeared, fusing together with the sun, causing the terrifying temperature to engulf the entire arena platform. It was as though anyone who dared to approach him would die, burned to death by the flames of the great sun venerable. Si Qiong similarly released his 3rd astral soul. It was a terrifying evil soul that had a pair of soul-stirring eyes, capable of causing the souls of those who stared at it to waver. Peng! Astral light erupted as both of them used stellar transposition at the first instant. In an instant, the two of them collided in the middle, so fast that the spectators couldn't even see where they had appeared from. A terrifying palm imprint of flames blasted out, wanting to annihilate everything. The scorching heat caused the water vapor in the air to evaporate, emitting a terrifying sizzling sound. Si Qiong's left hand stabbed out, instantly forming a shield of light. Chen Wang's flaming palm imprint slammed downwards, sinking deep into the shield, as though it had slammed into an incomparably soft mirror made of water. This was none other than the power of Si Qiong's mandate of water. Other than soul attacks, he was also proficient in the mandate of water. Only during the final battle, when he was fighting against Chen Wang, did he finally unleash his full potential. The water shield shattered as the terrifying flames caused it to explode. The temperature of Chen Wang's palm was too terrifying. It continued blasting towards Si Qiong. However, Si Qiong had already bought enough time to counter with a finger strike. The soul annihilation finger, a single finger strike could annihilate a soul. Split! Chen Wang spat out a cold voice. In an instant, Chen Wang's body split into 3. One terrifying flame god after another appeared, each of them resembling a fiery god of war that had just emerged from magma. Such a scene caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. Number 1, Chen Wang wanted to be number 1. This was Chen Wang's true strength. He had been concealing it all this time, and only now did he unleash it all. Si Qiong was similarly terrifying. He only unleashed his full potential during the final battle. The 3 flaming bodies simultaneously rushed towards Si Qiong. The 2 flaming giants beside him exuded an aura so powerful that it was terrifying. They were at the pinnacle of Yuanfu, and were on the verge of breaking through to Yuanfu. Si Qiong stared at Chen Wang's silhouette in front of him. With a wave of his hands, a water shield appeared, trapping the flaming giants within. Si Qiong's movement technique was extremely terrifying. He unceasingly moved about, blasting out beams of finger light towards Chen Wang, wanting to destroy his soul. Speed. Si Qiong's speed is also so fast. Speed, soul annihilation attacks, water shield defense. Si Qiong simply has no weaknesses. The spectators couldn't help but to exclaim in admiration. Even Chen Wang was being suppressed by Si Qiong's soul attacks. Finally, with a howl of rage, the two flaming bodies merged together with Chen Wang's original body. Chen Wang's body grew larger. It was as though he had truly transformed into a flaming war god, exuding an aura that transcended beyond Yuanfu. Indeed, Chen Wang already had the ability to break through to Heavenly Dipper. It's just that he was suppressing it, waiting for the end of the Heavenly Fate rankings before he broke through. The current Chen Wang is already equivalent to a Heavenly Dipper sovereign. The hearts of the spectators sighed. This was too shocking. Chen Wang's astral soul had already fused together with his body. No one doubted that Chen Wang would break through to Heavenly Dipper the moment the Heavenly Fate rankings ended. Not only that, based on his attainments in the Mandate of Mandate, once he broke through to Heavenly Dipper, his speed wouldn't be any slower compared to those who had already broken through to Heavenly Dipper. Hence, Chen Wang didn't lose much by waiting for the Heavenly Fate rankings. On the contrary, he had gained quite a bit. Chen Wang, who was now one with Si Qiong, erupted with lava flames. His palms blasted out once more as a gigantic flaming palm imprint covered the entire space in front of him. Si Qiong soared up into the air, his palms slashing out as a prison of water appeared. His silhouette shot towards Chen Wang, his 5 palms striking out at the same time, aiming for Chen Wang's head. Roar! Chen Wang opened his mouth and spat out flames. After which, the flames abruptly solidified, causing the space in front of him to solidify. Even the water screen was about to solidify. Si Qiong was actually trapped within. You've lost. Chen Wang roared as he slammed out with his palms. Si Qiong's body was flung through the air, and at the instant the flames exploded, Si Qiong's countenance turned pale. This strongest dark horse ultimately didn't make it to the end. He was defeated by Chen Wang. However, this battle at the pinnacle had truly broadened the horizons of the spectators. This was the Heavenly Fate rankings this time around, so powerful that it caused the spectators to feel stifled. Si Qiong stood up, staring at Chen Wang. Drawing in a deep breath, Si Qiong calmly stated, "You indeed have the qualifications to contend for the top spot in the Heavenly Fate rankings. Congratulations on obtaining the first position." Chen Wang's countenance turned calm as he inclined his head, staring at the skies. "You're already very strong. After this battle, I'm afraid I'll need to rest for a long period of time before I can fully recover." "It's not easy to obtain the first position," Chen Wang calmly stated. The spectators inclined their heads and stared at the arena platform as they sighed in their hearts. This battle at the pinnacle was truly fascinating. Chen Wang truly deserved to be the first. Has the Heavenly Fate rankings already ended? A discordant voice abruptly rang out, filled with doubt. The gazes of the spectators shifted over, only to see Qin Wenyin floating in the air, staring at Chen Wang and Si Qiong. The two of them kept on referring to themselves as the top ranker, as though the ranking battle had already ended. Chen Wang glanced at Qin Wenyin, as a look of disdain flashed in his eyes. "Count yourself lucky that you didn't encounter me this time around. Don't tell me you want to fight against me in your current state?" A mocking smile appeared on Qin Wenyan's face. "If that's the case, I can ask Senior for permission. I don't mind blasting you off the platform." Chen Wang furrowed his brows. His current state wasn't very good. "Ridiculous," Chen Wang icily replied. "Ridiculous." A demonic light flickered in Qin Wenyan's eyes as he coldly stated, "The ranking battle hasn't ended yet, and the top ranker has yet to be determined. How shameless can you be? If you were to be defeated, wouldn't you be throwing away all your face?" As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wenyin was already standing on the arena platform. The powerful purgatory vermilion bird hovered behind him, its eyes gleaming with a terrifying sharpness as it stared at Chen Wang. Qin Wenyin quietly stood on the arena platform, demonic qi billowing out from him. This scene caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble, as they felt that it was extremely interesting. This Qin Wendian hadn't given up yet, he still wanted to fight for the top spot. But although he wasn't bad, if he wanted to contend against Chen Wang, he still had to defeat Zhang Chen and Si Qiong first. You're truly confident. A voice drifted over. The spectators only saw Zhang Chen stepping onto the arena platform, coldly laughing as he stared at Qin Wendian. Finally, we're face to face. This time around, you better think about how you're going to survive. Qin Wendian also stared at Zhang Chen. This was someone he had to defeat no matter what. Regardless of whether it was for the top 3 rankings, or for the promise he made to Mo Qingqing, as long as he defeated Zhang Chen, everything would be accomplished. Where does your confidence come from? It's been so many years, yet you're still at this level of strength. Qin Wendian mocked. Is that so? At the very least, with your current cultivation base at the 8th level of Yuanfu, do you really think you can contend against me? The sharpness in Zhang Chen's voice grew denser and denser. The person he wanted to defeat and kill the most was none other than Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian's demonic eyes stared up at the skies as the corners of his lips curled up. When he turned his gaze back to Zhang Chen, the aura he exuded exploded forth in a frenzy. Taking a step forward, a terrifying demonic aura gushed out from his body. The energy he exuded seemed to be boiling as a raging wind swept across the area. Who told you that I'm at the 8th level of Yuanfu? Qin Wendian roared. The instant his foot landed, the aura of a cultivator at the 9th level of Yuanfu gushed forth, gushing towards Zhang Chen. Chapter 387. 9th level of Yuan. Qin Wendian's cultivation base wasn't at the 8th level, but rather, the 9th. Chen Wang, Si Qiong, and Zhang Chen had all been concealing their true strength. Qin Wendian, on the other hand, had been concealing his cultivation base. Only at this moment, when everyone thought that the victor had already been decided and the curtains of the ranking battle were about to fall, did he step out. Only now did the spectators realize that before this, no one had been able to force Chen Wang and Si Qiong to use their full strength. Similarly, no one had been able to force Qin Wendian to use his full strength. At this moment, the spectators couldn't help but to recall the arrogance Qin Wendian displayed when he fought against Emperor Azure. He was absolutely confident that he could defeat Emperor Azure in 10 breaths of time, because he knew that his cultivation base wasn't at the 8th level, but the 9th. When did he step into the 9th level of Yuanfu? At this moment, a question popped up in the minds of the spectators. When the ranking battle started, Qin Wendian was definitely at the 7th level of Yuanfu. There was no doubt about this. He was forced into the cave by Chen Wang, and after he came out, he was already at the 8th level of Yuanfu. But when did he step into the 9th level? Not only that, it hadn't been too long since the Heavenly Fate rankings had started, yet Qin Wendian had already broken through 2 levels. Although the geniuses of the Heavenly Fate rankings had all undergone some transformations, Qin Wendian's transformation was still too terrifying. Mo Qingqing and Bai Qing stood together. At this moment, Bai Qing had already removed her long robes, revealing her graceful and beautiful figure. Every time the spectators saw her, they would all sigh in amazement. They didn't dare to believe that such a beautiful woman would actually cultivate such a tyrannical devil art. Wendian Gige is so powerful he's actually at the 9th level of Yuanfu. He promised that he would defeat Zhang Chen, he would definitely do it. Mo Qingqing had a smile on her face. It seemed like her limit break pellets weren't wasted. As long as Qin Wendian defeated Zhang Chen, her master, Luo He, wouldn't obstruct him anymore. Those from the White Deer Institute couldn't help but to exclaim in admiration. Never would they have imagined that Qin Wendian would be able to reach this step. Not only that, he was only a single step away from achieving what they wanted Qin Wendian to do. Although Zhang Chen had a terrifying secret art, would Qin Wendian, who was at the 9th level of Yuanfu, be defeated? For some reason, although Qin Wendian was facing Zhang Chen, no one was optimistic about Zhang Chen's chances. Everyone's confidence was all placed on Qin Wendian. Naturally, they had reason to believe in Qin Wendian. When Qin Wenyin was at the 8th level of Yuanfu, he was able to conceal his true strength. This indicated that he had been suppressing his own strength in the earlier battles. Now that he had broken through to the next level, all the power he could erupt with would be amplified. This was a power that was completely under his control. It wasn't a secret technique. "Zhan Qin, what do you have to fight me?" Qin Wenyan's voice was ice-cold as he lunged towards Zhan Qin. "When you were at the peak of Yuanfu, I was only at the low level of Yuanfu. You aren't even qualified to stand with me on the arena platform." Zhan Qin's countenance stiffened as he stared at Qin Wenyan. How did he do it? He actually broke through to the 9th level of Yuanfu? This caused Zhan Qin to feel an immense pressure bearing down on him. If he was defeated by Qin Wenyan, what glory would he have left? His goal was to slay Qin Wenyan on the heavenly fate ranking platform. Chen Wang didn't understand. He remembered that Qin Wenyan's cultivation base was at the 7th level of Yuanfu. "When did you step into the 9th level of Yuanfu?" Chen Wang coldly asked. Qin Wenyan swept a glance at him. The coldness in his eyes was as cold as ever. "I have to thank you for hunting me down. If not, I wouldn't have been able to step into the 9th level so quickly." Chen Wang had chased Qin Wenyan within the Vermilion Bird Formation grounds, forcing him into the cave. After which, Hua Feng, Sidpe, and Yang Fan waited for him outside the cave, humiliating him and even insulting Mo Qingqing. Qin Wenyan's rage towered to the heavens, and in a fit of rage, he was prepared to consume the limit break pellet. At that time, his Yuanfu started to rumble, showing signs of breaking through on its own. Hence, Qin Wenyan endured it. He didn't consume the limit break pellet at that time, relying on his own strength to break through to the 8th level of Yuanfu. After which, he impatiently barged into the cave and slaughtered Orphan and the rest in the most tyrannical manner possible. As for how he broke through to the 9th level of Yuanfu, it was because he had entered the cave of the demonic divinity sacrificial transformation and had also consumed the limit break pellet. Qin Wenyan didn't reply to Chen Wang's question. He stared at him for a moment before coldly replying, "Let's hope that you, the top ranker of the heavenly fate rankings, will be able to last until the end. If not, you will lose face in front of the entire Grand Xia. Do you really think that just because you've broken through to the 9th level of Yuanfu, you have the qualifications to contend against me?" Disdain flickered in Chen Wang's eyes. How could Qin Wenyan's breakthrough in cultivation be able to shake his position? "Let's finish the battle with Zhan Qin first. You can fantasize about it later. To me, it doesn't matter if you hide your cultivation or not." Chen Wang, who was standing beside Qin Wenyan, slowly spoke as he walked down the arena platform. He needed to recover his strength. Earlier, he had paid a heavy price to defeat Si Qiong. Currently, the astral energy in his body was almost completely depleted. Si Qiong flicked his sleeves as he similarly walked down the arena platform. In the blink of an eye, only 2 people remained on the arena platform: Zhan Qin, Qin Wenyan. Would this battle be the final battle for the heavenly fate rankings? As long as Zhan Qin won, the ranking battle would be over. Before Qin Wenyan revealed his strength at the 9th level of Yuanfu, the spectators initially thought that this would be the final battle. But now, they couldn't help but be filled with anticipation. Maybe, the heavenly fate rankings would continue. "I've already thought of a way to survive. Why haven't I acted yet?" Qin Wenyan stared at Zhan Qin. Earlier, Zhan Qin's arrogant words made Qin Wenyan think carefully about how he should survive the upcoming battles. Zhan Qin's body was clad in a golden armor. His lips trembled as he closed his eyes, summoning the will of the ancient. Bzz. A raging wind gusted as a pair of wings unfurled on Qin Wenyan's back. His silhouette abruptly vanished, and with a speed akin to lightning, he instantly appeared in front of Zhan Qin. With a single palm strike, the entire space trembled as the roar of a dragon shook the heavens and earth. Zhan Qin abruptly opened his eyes as he slashed out with his sword. However, under the terrifying might of Qin Wenyan's attack, his sword was completely destroyed. Boom! An immense force slammed into Zhan Qin, causing him to be flung through the air. His countenance paled as he coughed out fresh blood. Strength, this was an absolute suppression of strength. With his cultivation base at the 9th level of Yuanfu, Qin Wentian's astral energy was condensed into an attack. In addition to his mandate of force and mandate of demons, the power of his attack was unimaginable. Just a single strike had caused Zhang Qin to spit out blood. Zhang Qin floated in the air, his sharp eyes staring at Qin Wenin, his countenance ashen. "Don't tell me you think that I should just stand here and wait for you to use your secret art before we fight?" An intense killing intent flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes, piercing through Zhang Qin's own. "This battle is a battle of life and death." As the sound of his voice faded, his silhouette vanished once again. The third eye in the center of his brows swept past Zhang Qin as a terrifying will of mandate gushed forth. The golden light radiating from Zhang Qin's body grew even more intense as a ruthless light flickered in his eyes. At the instant he closed his eyes, a surge of energy that didn't belong to him pulsed within him. "No matter what secret art you have, you won't have the chance to use it anymore." A voice directly penetrated into Zhang Qin's mind. At this moment, Zhang Qin could already see Qin Wentian's tyrannical palm strike gushing towards him. Lifting his hands, he slashed out with his sword. However, Qin Wentian transformed into a myriad of illusory images that attacked him. Zhang Qin's sword slashed out in a frenzy as the aura emanating from him grew increasingly terrifying. But at this moment, not many people were paying attention to Zhang Qin. They were all staring at Qin Wentian. Because Zhang Qin's sword slashed out in a haphazard manner while Qin Wentian quietly stood in the air, his eyes gleaming with a hint of playfulness. This caused the spectators to be filled with disbelief. Was this really a battle between Zhang Qin and Qin Wentian? Why was there such a dramatic turn of events? If one's heart is in chaos, how can one's will be so firm? How can one differentiate between reality and illusion? Qin Wentian mumbled. Zhang Qin's strength wasn't so weak, but fear had already filled his heart. Hence, when Qin Wentian unleashed his second-level mandate of dreams, the mandate of dream will, Zhang Qin naturally believed it to be real, unable to differentiate between reality and illusion. This was similar to the time when he fought against Sherpatian. He used his speed to unleash frenzied attacks, but in the end, Sherpatian was enraged and frustrated. After that, Qin Wentian didn't attack, only unleashing his will. Yet what he saw was still a sky full of attacks. The mandate of dreams was even more tyrannical compared to the mandate of illusions. It could cause one to sink into a dreamscape, unable to extricate themselves. A raging wind gusted by as Qin Wentian's silhouette vanished once again. Zhang Qin's sword slashed down, but in that instant he seemed to have sensed something. A terrifying light flashed in his eyes as he stared at Qin Wentian. "Your life, I'll take it." A cold voice rang out. Qin Wentian violently blasted out with a palm strike, causing the entire space to tremble violently. The spectators froze, only to hear a deafening rumble as an incomparably violent force destroyed everything in its path. Zhang Qin's body was destroyed, and his head exploded. Qin Wentian, in the most tyrannical manner possible, killed Zhang Qin. Just like what he said, Zhang Qin's life was taken by him. In the Heavenly Fate Rankings battle, the Heavens Chosen of the Pill Emperor Hall, Zhang Qin, died in the hands of Qin Wentian. Such a scene was too shocking to the spectators, causing their hearts to be unable to calm down. In the air, at the place where Zhang Qin died, a golden orb could be seen flickering with a strange light. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with a cold light as he grabbed out with his palms, causing a terrifying energy to envelop the orb. Bzz. An intense struggle erupted forth from the golden orb, causing Qin Wentian to snort. This should be the reason why Zhang Qin was acting strangely. Back then, the gold element ancient scroll he had tossed away wasn't anything good. Extinguish! Qin Wentian's finger landed, as a scream of agony rang out in the air. Instantly, the golden orb was destroyed, vanishing without a trace. The expressions of the spectators froze as they witnessed this scene. Even the experts in the hallway narrowed their eyes. That golden orb seemed to have a life of its own, and Qin Wentian didn't hesitate at all, directly destroying it with a single finger. Qin Wentian's decisiveness was terrifying. Just like when he killed Zhang Chen, he didn't hesitate at all. He had a grudge with Zhang Chen, and if he wanted Zhang Chen to die, he wouldn't hesitate at all. He only knew that Zhang Chen had to die. Hence, he killed him. Chapter 388. Zhang Chen had fallen. The fourth position on the heavenly fate rankings was now vacant. After the ranking battle concluded, the fourth position would be filled up again. And after this battle, Qin Wentian would officially become one of the top 3 rankers. As for his final ranking, it had yet to be determined. Bailu Yi and Bailu Jing all had smiles on their faces. Even the large-eyed elder from the White Deer Institute was smiling. Staring at the silhouette on the arena platform, he commented in a low voice, "This little brat actually managed to achieve such a feat in the ranking battle of the Heavenly Fate rankings, becoming one of the top 3 rankers. With such talent, his future achievements will be limitless." However, as the large-eyed elder spoke, traces of worry could be seen flickering in his eyes. Zhang Chen wasn't an ordinary character, he was a heavens chosen from the Pill Emperor Hall. And in this ranking battle, Qin Wentian had already killed many heavens chosen from the transcendent powers. He had offended too many people, and this made the large-eyed elder worry for Qin Wentian. Even if Qin Wentian became the top ranker in the heavenly fate rankings, he had already formed a grudge with the transcendent powers. These people would only wish for Qin Wentian's death. Geniuses had to be strangled in the cradle. I wonder if it's a blessing or a curse for him to be so arrogant. Bailu Yi's father also sighed. This should be the nature of one's heart. Those who reach the pinnacle of the ancient times would never suppress their emotions, they would dare to love and hate. Their will was strong, their state of mind clear, and they wouldn't have any knots in their hearts. Even if they had to fight against the entire world, they had to follow their heart. Didn't the Azure Emperor also do the same back then? But what a pity, it was all because of this that he fell. The large-eyed elder spoke in a low voice. In this world, there were 2 types of people who could achieve greatness. The first type was like Qin Wentian and the Azure Emperor, showing off their sharpness, not suppressing their true heart, doing as they pleased. The other type was able to endure what others couldn't. They could disguise themselves to the extreme, like a gentleman, but in the dark, they were a devil that killed people like scything flax. Such a person's temperament was similarly terrifying, low profile, and deep. But ultimately, it all came down to one's heart. If one's heart was strong enough, nothing would be able to shake it. Mo Qingqing stood on the stone platform with a smile on her face. Her white robes fluttered in the wind, her beauty capable of toppling empires. She stared at the silhouette of Qin Wentian on the arena platform, feeling pride for him. Along the way, he had experienced too many things. For her, he killed Hua Xiaoyun, and now he defeated Zhang Chen, fulfilling his promise to her. There were simply too many people who were shocked and astonished as they stared at the silhouette on the arena platform. Behind him, the purgatory vermilion bird floated in the air, exuding a terrifying baleful light. It had devoured Zhang Chen's vermilion bird spirit, and it was like its master, Qin Wentian, wanting to sweep away everything in its path. Qin Wentian slowly turned his gaze to Si Qiong and Chen Wang. Chen Wang also opened his eyes and looked at Yi Fujian. Their gazes met, and terrifying sharpness clashed in the air. "There's one more battle, and I'll be standing in front of you. I hope that you can still hold on to your so-called #1 position." Qin Wentian slowly spoke. After defeating Zhang Chen, he would fight against Si Qiong. If he lost, he would be ranked #3. But if he defeated Si Qiong, he would stand at the pinnacle of the heavenly fate rankings and face off against Chen Wang. Qin Wentian was the same as Chen Wang. He had absolute confidence in himself. It was as though Si Qiong would become his stepping stone. His words completely disregarded Si Qiong's existence. There were some who felt that Qin Wentian was arrogant. But regardless of Chen Wang, Si Qiong, the defeated Sherpadian, or the dead Zhang Chen, who wasn't arrogant. If they didn't even have confidence in their own strength, how could they defeat them? That was a kind of conviction, a conviction that would allow one to press forward with indomitable will. Si Qiong's eyes gleamed with sharpness as he stared at Qin Wenyin. Qin Wenyin was brazen. Speaking to Chen Wang in such a manner was undoubtedly disregarding his existence. He, Si Qiong, came to Grand Xia to participate in the heavenly fate rankings with the intention of obtaining the number 1 position. Yet he was defeated by Chen Wang. He could only accept it. Chen Wang had stayed at the heavenly fate realm for a longer period of time than him, but against Qin Wenyin, how could he lose a second battle? Although Qin Wenyin had been concealing his true cultivation base, it was clear that he hadn't stayed at the heavenly fate realm for too long. If he were to lose again, he wouldn't be able to accept it. I'll give you all a day to rest. The next battle shall be between Qin Wenyin and Si Qiong. Old man Tianji slowly spoke, causing the gazes of the crowd to turn to the wise and far-sighted silhouette. Could it be that old man Tianji had the foresight to arrange the battle between Chen Wang and Si Qiong? Could it be that he had foreseen something? Back then, when old man Tianji had arranged for Chen Wang to fight against Si Qiong, the majority of the spectators had thought that it would be a decisive battle. But now, their assumptions had been overturned. Old man Tianji is able to pry into astral fate. Even if Qin Wenyin concealed his cultivation base, the fluctuations of astral energy in his body shouldn't be able to fool old man Tianji. Old man Tianji should have already known that Qin Wenyin had broken through to the 9th level of Yuanfu. The hearts of the spectators mused. For those with unique astral souls, or those who were proficient in sensing the fluctuations of astral energy, they would be able to tell the cultivation base of others with a single glance. Old man Tianji definitely had such an ability. He had long known that Zhan Chen would lose to Qin Wenyin. In that case, did old man Tianji also believe that Qin Wenyin would be able to defeat Si Qiong? If not, if Si Qiong won, the final battle would have been brought forward. Qin Wenyin returned to the stone platform. Bai Qing's body was much better after consuming the medicinal pellet. She pulled on his arm as she smiled. Wenyin Gij, you're already in the top 3. You're also in the top 5, and you were the one who gave up. Qin Wenyin rubbed Bai Qing's head, causing Bai Qing to slap his arm away. Glaring at him, she stated, Wenyin Gij, I'm no longer a little girl. Qin Wenyin laughed as he stared at the mischievous look on Bai Qing's face. Back then, this little lass had indeed grown up. She was even more beautiful than her elder sister, and her figure was even better. In my eyes, there's no difference. Qin Wenyin laughed as he pinched her cheeks, causing Bai Qing to hatefully glare at him. This fellow had always liked to do this when they were young. Even now, he still loved to rub other people's heads and pinch their cheeks. How detestable. Umph. Bai Qing's lips twitched, yet she was feeling extremely happy in her heart. Such a feeling was so good. It was as though she had returned to that innocent and pure era, where she had no worries, sitting together with her Wenyin Gij and chatting, not knowing what worries were. Now, she had finally returned to the past. It's about time for you to recover your astral energy. Mo Qingqing tugged on Qin Wentian's arm. Qin Wentian looked at Mo Qingqing as he nodded his head. The earlier battle didn't consume too much of my energy. This time around, old man Tianji gave me a day's worth of rest. It's more than enough. Don't worry, I know what you're thinking. I will take good care of myself. Qin Wenyin tugged on Mo Qingqing's hand, exerting a slight amount of force. The two of them smiled at each other. Mo Qingqing wasn't thinking about whether Qin Wenyin would be able to obtain the top ranker on the heavenly fate rankings, but rather, his safety. Qin Wenyin sat cross-legged as Yuan meteor stones appeared in his hands. During this period of time, his consumption of Yuan meteor stones was extremely high. The amount of Yuan meteor stones he had on him was almost depleted. On the path of cultivation, the higher one's cultivation, the more resources they would need. After a short period of time, Qin Wenyin replenished the astral energy in his Yuanfu. At the same time, he condensed some divine energy in preparation for battle. However, Qin Wenyin didn't immediately open his eyes. Recently, there were many things happening around him that gave him a strange feeling. He wanted to connect the dots, yet he had no way to do so. For example, Yunmeng. Who is she? Was she really Princess Tianyu? And why did his biological father come to Grand Xia back then, bringing away a woman? Was that woman Yun Mingyi? If that was the case, Yun Mingyi shouldn't be so young. If he wanted to find out, the only way was to unravel the memories of his father. As he thought of this, Qin Wentian's attention landed on the tiny astral being in his sea of consciousness. Once again, he arrived at the boundless starry space. There were simply too many astral fragments here. Each and every one of them was a memory fragment. These few years, he had read many memory fragments, and would often see the silhouette of that middle-aged man. He had already gradually accepted the possibility that the middle-aged man was his biological father. These memory fragments were all trivial matters that happened when his father was still alive. One memory fragment after another was opened by Qin Wenyin. He wanted to find the memories of his father back then in Grand Xia. After a long period of time, Qin Wentian's will retracted as he began to absorb the memory fragments. Within these memory fragments, he saw an elegant courtyard. The middle-aged man was sitting cross-legged there, cultivating. Above the sky, resplendent astral light cascaded down, landing on him. This courtyard seemed to be shrouded in a constellation, incomparably resplendent. How powerful! Qin Wendian couldn't help but to exclaim in admiration. However, at this moment, the middle-aged man coughed a few times as the constellation vanished. He coughed out a mouthful of black-colored blood as his countenance paled, as though he had suffered heavy injuries. Staring at the heavens, the middle-aged man's eyes flickered with a sense of melancholy, but soon after, they turned resolute. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his gaze akin to a terrifying sharp sword piercing through the clouds, as though wanting to tear apart the heavens. Just by casually standing there, he exuded a terrifying aura. Behind the middle-aged man, a silhouette slowly walked over. Staring at the back of the middle-aged man, he saw that the middle-aged man was kneeling on the ground, unmoving. The middle-aged man turned his head and walked over, helping the middle-aged man up as he ruthlessly patted the middle-aged man's shoulder, as though they were old friends that hadn't seen each other for a very long time. However, the middle-aged man's eyes were filled with respect. It's him! At the instant he saw this silhouette, great waves of shock rose in Qin Wentian's heart. Everything that happened on the heavenly steel steps wasn't a coincidence. It was a test for him. Beside him, a silhouette appeared. It was none other than the young woman who bore a striking resemblance to Yun Mingyi. And at this moment, the fragmented memories vanished without a trace. It was as though this was the end of the fragmented memories. Qin Wendian opened his eyes as a terrifying sharpness flickered within. Abruptly shifting his gaze over, Qin Wendian saw the silhouette of a young woman walking in his direction. This young woman was none other than Yun Mingyi. Yun Mingyi glanced at Mo Qingqing, feeling a sense of awe in her heart. No wonder Qin Wendian wasn't bewitched by her back then. So it turned out that he had such a beautiful lover. I have some words I wish to speak with him alone. Yun Mingyi spoke in a light voice. Mo Qingqing cast a glance at Qin Wendian before lightly nodding her head, pulling by Qin along as they walked away. Who are you exactly? Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with sharpness as he asked. I've told you before, it's up to you whether you want to believe me or not. Now, I'm going to impart a set of oracular chant to you. Yun Mingyi spoke to Qin Wendian. Take out 3 sides of the divine steel and chant the oracular chant. You will be able to summon the ancient will of the heavenly steel and combine the 9 sides into one. With that, you will be able to wield the 9 ultimate arts of Grand Xia. However, you have to think this through. The other 6 sides are still in the hands of the 6 transcendent powers of the 7 great clans. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.